and welcome to the regularly scheduled City of Tallahassee City Commission meeting, Wednesday, April 24th. It is 4 o'clock, and we are going to go ahead and get started. It's great to see everybody here today. Give the Mayor Pro Tem just a second. You're all right? You're all right?
The dean.
Not a problem. I'd like to recognize Commissioner Elaine Bryant. Dr. Bryant will be introducing gentlemen that will be providing the invocation. Dr. Bryant.
Thank you, Mayor. Our invocation today will be offered by Reverend Derek Mercer, who is the Associate Minister at the Bethel Baptist Church. Welcome.
Let us pray. Eternal God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to gather together to make this city, Tallahassee, a better place. We thank you for our mayor. Pray, oh God, that you will bless him and the entire city commission with grace and wisdom to continue to do what's in the best interest of the city of Tallahassee, so all persons are able to live with decency and dignity and maximize the gifts and the talents that you have placed inside of each and every one of them. So God, I pray that you will continue to remind us of our shared common humanity, that we are interconnected and one affects us all. So we pray for the spirit of unity and togetherness in our world, in our country, in our state, and in our city. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Let us all stand for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reverend Mercer, thank you so very much for providing the invocation. We certainly do appreciate it. Commissioner Bryant, thank you for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. City Manager, do we have any agenda modifications?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do. Item 13.07 has been added to your original agenda packet. Materials have been provided to items 13.01 and 13.05. And item 13.02 has an attachment that has been added to that item.
Excellent. Any questions from the commission? All right. Commissioner Matlow, I would like to recognize you to present a proclamation to the City County Bicycle Working Group.
Hey, good evening. I'd like to invite the Joint City-County Bicycle Working Group up to accept this proclamation. From the governing body of the City of Tallahassee, whereas for more than a century, the bicycle has been an important part of the lives of most Americans, and whereas today, millions of Americans engage in bicycling as an environmentally sound form of transportation, an excellent form of fitness, and provides quality family recreation. And whereas the education of residents on the proper and safe operation of bicycles and motor vehicles is important to ensure the safety and comfort of all users. And whereas various cycling organizations and independent cyclists throughout our community are promoting greater public awareness of bicycle operation and safety education in an effort to reduce accidents, injuries, and fatalities. And whereas the City of Tallahassee has been named a silver-level bicycle-friendly community by the League of American Bicycles, and whereas the City of Tallahassee continues to make investments in bicycle infrastructure like FAMU Way and the protected bike lanes downtown. And whereas the City of Tallahassee is one of the top 50 best bike cities according to Bicycling Magazine. Now therefore I, Commissioner Matlow, on behalf of John Daly and the authority invested in him as mayor of the City of Tallahassee, along with the Tallahassee City Commission, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2019 as Bike Month, and urge all citizens to participate in the community events celebrating cycling.
Thank you, Commissioner Matlow. Thank you all the commissioners and Mayor Daley for recognizing May as Bike Month for Tallahassee. I also want to thank Julie Christensen and Artie White for their work in developing, maintaining, inspiring, and working with the Joint City-County Work Group as we work to overcome obstacles and creatively and collaboratively problem solve around issues pertaining to bicycling in our city. We want to thank the city of Tallahassee for making so much progress in bicycle-friendly infrastructure, both relating to using bicycles as transportation in our city, as well as recreationally. We know that when people use bicycles as transportation and recreationally, that we're helping to contribute to healthier, more resilient community overall. We want to encourage all of you to consider getting on a bike if you haven't been on one recently. We have a lot of really cool events that happen year-round in Tallahassee, but we certainly have a lot that's happening in May, and we would love for you to come and join us on a bike ride. You can check those out at biketallahassee.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Matlow. Appreciate it. Mr. City Manager, do we have any announcements?
No, sir.
We are now at the portion of the meeting where we have citizen input on agenda items. I know many of y'all are here to speak on Agenda 13.01, and everybody will have an opportunity to speak. If you do not think that you will be able to be here when the agenda item comes up, we provide this opportunity at the beginning of the meeting so that everybody has an opportunity to be heard. If you will be here when the agenda item will be coming up, we encourage you to wait and speak when the agenda item is before us. Mr. Cook, do we have any public speakers?
Mayor, we do. You have described it quite accurately, I believe. The first speaker that does want to speak at this early portion of the meeting is Ray Brown, and on item 1301. As I'm looking, I believe the rest of the speakers on 1301 will speak at the time of the item.
Mr. Brown, it's good to see you. If you would please tell us your name and your address for the record, and if you can keep your comments to 3 minutes, that'd be wonderful.
Sure, thank you. My name is Ray Brown, and I live at 6452 Mary Lake Court in Tallahassee off East Tram Road. And I'm here in behalf of myself, my property, and my neighbors, to where we're now being told that Florida Power and Lights are going to come out into our neighborhood and establish some, well, first of all, they'll take some of our property, which will have a great impact on all of us. If any of you all have traveled out Tram Road in recent years, you can see there's a very beautiful cannabis road out there, and also a lot of houses are right on the side of the road. And we would hate to have a huge power source over our house and our yards. And this is why we're here today. And we ask and we understand that you'll be making your decision with this agenda item today for the constituents of the city of Tallahassee. But I do ask you, please consider those of us who are outside the city limits, that we will be impacted by this as well. So in your opportunities of making a decision, please consider the people, make this a people's agenda and not just for the people of Tallahassee, the citizens of Tallahassee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Mayor, the only other speaker on that item at this time may be Ed Oaksford. I'm not sure if he wanted to speak now or at the later portion.
Thank you, Mr. Oaks. Appreciate it.
Then the only other speaker we have at this part of our meeting is Dr. Erwin Jackson on item 1303.
Dr. Jackson, it's good to see you. Your name and address for the record, please.
Erwin Jackson, 1341 Jackson Bluff. As many of you know, I've come here for the last about 10 years, speaking and trying to expose corruption in City Hall. There's a issue at 13.01 which deals with a zero tolerance of city commissioners and city staff accepting gifts. I want to commend the members of this commission for accomplishing something that I've tried to push and get accepted for about 10 years. The importance for doing this was also revealed today about 11 o'clock. Today, our ex-mayor Andrew Gillum joins the ranks of ex-mayor Scott Maddox and his assistant Paige Carter-Smith, and ex-city manager Rick Fernandez, all each individually accepting gifts and bribes from various city contractors and businesses. Specifically, Gillum admitted, after denying it for probably almost a year, Gillum admitted to taking one or more bribes from a city contractor or lobbyist valued in excess of $100 and failed to report these gifts, bribes, as required by law. This is a major victory for cleaning up City Hall. As you also know, Andrew Gillum now is going to join the ranks, like I said, of Scott Maddox. Scott is even worse, and he's facing 44 felony counts, which should put him away for a couple decades, about 20 years, I've been told. I also believe that criminal charges will follow once the ethics complaints are removed, processed. Will be faced criminal charges charged against Andrew Gillum and also Rick Fernandez. So we're in the middle of this. We're going all the way, and thanks for this being a great start. At the end of the meeting, I'm going to chat with you because I have 9 more policy changes that I also would support, and along with the zero tolerance for gifts and bribes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
That's the only other speaker we have. I don't have any other speakers at this portion of the meeting. Others will come when the agenda item.
Is there anyone here that has not had a chance to fill out a card that would like to speak at this point in the meeting? Okay, moving on. We are on appearances by City Commission, appointed boards and committees and other governments. 8.01, Mr. City Manager, the acceptance of the fiscal year 2018 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Item 8.01 recommends your acceptance of the city's annual comprehensive financial report, also known as the CAFR, for the year ending September 30th, 2018. I'm going to ask the chairman of our audit committee, Matt Hansard, to come forward. He has some comments to share on this. I'll also note that the city's audit committee has already reviewed the report and accepted it.
Mr. Chairman, good to see you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Daley, fellow commissioners, and City Manager Goode. I'm here on behalf of the city's audit committee to present to you the summarized results of the audit of the city's financial statements and its compliance with major federal awards and state financial assistance. Throughout the audit process, our audit committee met periodically with Director of Financial Services Patrick Twyman, the City Auditor Joe Malashevsky, their respective staffs, and the external auditor to discuss the review the planning, timing, extent of testing, and the results of the audit procedures performed. And from those meetings, I'm pleased to report to the Commission that the joint firms of Thomas Hal Ferguson and Law Red Cronin Monroe rendered an unmodified opinion on the fair presentation of the city's financial statements that include all its governmental activities, business type activities, its discretely presented component unit, and each major fund and aggregate remaining fund information. Additionally, I'm pleased to report to the Commission that the city also received an unmodified opinion on its compliance with the grant administration of its major federal programs and state projects with no cited material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the design and or implementation of internal controls over the applicable grant compliance requirements tested. And furthermore, corrective actions by management to cure significant deficiencies cited in prior year compliance reports for subrecipient monitoring and reporting were reviewed by the external auditors and considered resolved during the current year being audited. And as required, the external auditors also issued its report on internal controls over financial reporting, and in that report, one significant deficiency was cited with the city's current internal controls over accounting for its capital assets that allowed for primarily the duplication of assets recorded in the asset management system, and which resulted in audit proposed entries to correct the errors detected. Included with the disclosed finding is a corrective action plan developed by management to cure the deficiency. The audit committee has reviewed the proposed procedures with management and external auditors, and we are satisfied that once the newly proposed control procedures are implemented, that it will adequately address and cure the significant deficiency cited. And as a result of the audit committee's satisfaction and approval of the rendered auditor's report and management's responses, I ask on behalf of the audit committee for the Commission's acceptance of the presented comprehensive annual financial report.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for the chairman?
Move acceptance, Mr. Mayor.
Acceptance of the report has been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you and the audit committee for all the fine work that you all have done. I also want to thank Raul Levin and his team for the support that you provided. Y'all did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously. We are now on the consent agenda.
Move consent, Mr. Mayor.
Real quick, Mr. Manager, have any of the consent agenda items been pulled?
No, sir.
Okay, we've got a motion for the consent approval by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Bryant. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I didn't want to pull any items from the consent agenda, but I did want to make
Absolutely.
a couple of quick observations on each item. I'm ecstatic that we are supporting the construction of the sidewalk on Bluntstown Street. For years, when I took my daughters to daycare in that area, I would see individuals walking along that strip, and there's a footpath that's been there for years now. And certainly it has been apparent to me, and I'm sure the people who use that stretch of highway, that there is a need for a sidewalk in that area. So I'm ecstatic that we're able to support the construction of that sidewalk. That was item 9.01. On 9.02, I just want to again point out that this is funding for the 15 electric buses that we are purchasing that will service the Florida State University campus, and speaks to our continued commitment to preserve our environment and to go green, if you will, Mr. Mayor and colleagues. And also, through an open, transparent RFP process, we were able to select a local business, Capital City Bank, to serve as the financial institution for this bond issue. So I just wanted to point those issues out on those two items, Mr. Mayor.
Wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate it. Madam Attorney, on the introduction of ordinances, do we have any ordinances to be introduced to the record tonight? No, we do not. Folks, we are now on policy formation and direction. We are on item number 13.01. Before we begin, I would like to go ahead and make a statement that I am recusing myself from this vote. I will be removing myself from the chambers and passing the gavel to the Mayor Pro Tem. The declaration of my conflict is that it is a perceived conflict, not a direct conflict. My wife's law firm, which is based in Fort Lauderdale, recently completed a project in South Florida, not in our jurisdiction, with Florida Power and Light. That took place about 2 months ago. In consultation with the city attorney, we agreed that under Florida statutes, the definition of a perceived conflict, that the timing between the vote and the project that took place is just a little too close for comfort. So in an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse myself, and Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I am passing the gavel. I will file the appropriate paperwork with the Treasurer Clerk's office. Y'all just come get me when you're done.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so we are on item 13.01, an update on the North Florida Resiliency Connection Transmission Project. Mr. City Manager, I know we have some speakers, but did you want to tee up the item before we get to speakers?
I'd be happy to,
okay.
sir.
Mr. City Manager?
I can be very brief, but just to give context to this item involves a proposed transmission line by Gulf Power Company. The proposed project's about a 176-mile-long transmission line from Columbia County at our east, Lake City area, to Jackson County to our west. You'll hear several company names related to this, as Gulf Power is a member of the Next Era company. Next Era also owns Florida Power and Light, and the project is proposed to connect those two systems, Florida Power and Light and Gulf Power. In February, Gulf Power and FPL combined, the joint team, approached the city and asked if we would allow them to co-locate on about 14 miles of transmission line corridor that we already operate. So this would be 14 miles of line. In fact, you can see it on the map on your screen highlighted in yellow. It's not a continuous 14 miles, but a total of about 14 miles. And the question was, which is in front of us today, would we allow them to place transmission lines in that existing corridor? Of course, that's a complicated, it's a simple question, but it's a complicated question to make sure that it can be done safely, meeting all regulatory standards, engineering standards, and safety standards. So we've done our due diligence over the last couple of months to evaluate that. The question still stands, can we co-locate on that? So we've prepared a recommendation for you tonight to recommend the co-location. Our logic is that land's already cleared. It would minimize, if not completely mitigate, the need for additional land clearing in the area that you see on your screen in yellow. And we believe from an engineering standpoint, we can meet the standards necessary. Now, we want to do a little more work on that, but we believe we're close enough to conclude that that's possible. David Burns prepared to go a little deeper, but before we get there, it might be appropriate to take public comments.
Yes, we will. Mr. Treasurer Clerk, do we have speakers?
We do, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. The first is Mike Tomkavitz, and then Jerry Deloney.
Okay, Mike, if you would come to the microphone, give us your name and address for the record, please. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Tomkowitz. I'm an eminent domain attorney with the law firm of Gray Robinson based here in Tallahassee, Florida. I wanted to give you a quick overview here. There's a substantial number of homeowners who are your constituents who are in the path of this project. My firm represents approximately 40 of those right now, but it's growing by the day. We're here to ask for the city's assistance in fighting what FP&L, Gulf Power, NextEra Energy, whatever it is that you call them, they're doing. The proposed transmission line might be something that's needed to strengthen the grid, and it's good for North Florida as a whole, but it runs along Tram Road in a large part of Leon County. Many of my clients live along Tram Road. In many cases, the proposed transmission line will eliminate trees, bushes, and other landscaping which buffer my client's property along the road. In more extreme cases, construction of the proposed transmission line will result in demolition of some of my clients' homes. In all cases, the transmission line will be constructed in close proximity to someone's house where no transmission line previously existed. I'm sure you can imagine what that's like. It's not great to have a large transmission line carrying anywhere from 160 kVs to 500 kVs of electricity across your power, or across your property. The city has represented that they don't have much leverage or ability to stop what they're doing, but that's just simply not the case. Before you have a memorandum of understanding in order to co-locate their transmission lines in parts of your easements. They ask you to sign that to save money and to make it easier for them to do their project. It may be well and good that they do that, but we would ask that you condition that agreement on some things. And so what we'd ask you to consider would be, first, we'd like Gulf Power, NextEra, and FPL to consider relocating the portion of the project that runs along Tram Road, which becomes Walkena Highway in Jefferson County. This corridor is primarily residential, with many of the homes close to the proposed transmission line. We'd like the power company to consider another corridor that involves more agricultural lands or large vacant tracts. There's certainly plenty of options out there. Second, we'd ask for more transparency with respect to the project and the construction plans. I've been asking the power company for months about their project, and the only response I've received is that they can share information for specific parcels, but not for the project in general. In fact, you may be aware the city was required to execute a non-disclosure agreement prior to discussing the project with city officials. Why is this so secretive? Who are they keeping the information secret from? We'd like to know what the alternatives Gulf Power has considered, where are the poles proposed to be located, what the poles will actually look like, the timeline for acquisition of the right-of-way, and actual construction of the lines. Third, we'd ask for the city to require, as part of the memorandum of understanding, that the power company stop sending agents to residents' homes without following the eminent domain pre-suit procedures of Section 73015 Florida statutes. Right now, there are power company agents running up and down the corridor trying to meet with property owners and convince them to sign a transmission line easement for nominal or no compensation. Section 73015 requires the condemning authority to make written offers to potential condemnees based on a valid appraisal. Right now, the power company does not have any appraisals for the properties that it's making offers on in Leon and Jefferson County. This is completely unfair to the property owners. To offer $1,000 or $2,000 to someone that may be entitled to 10 times that is not right and should not occur. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Jerry Deloney. Next is Jerry Deloney. And the next speaker after that will be Donald Axelrod.
All right. Hello, Mr. Deloney. How you doing?
Good evening. My name is Jerry Deloney. I'm a former veterinarian and owned Northwood Animal Hospital. Been a resident and working here and paying taxes for more than 30 years. My first concern with this project is the negative environmental impact that's going to have on our area, not just Tram Road area. I 100% agree this is not a route that should be taken. We're nothing on Old Plank Road 2. I live at the intersection of Old Plank and Tram. There's nothing under Tram Road except a limestone base of sand and caves and sinkholes. I'm shameful you're even considering, in the light of the millions of dollars that has been spent on the environmental cleanup of Wakulla Springs and other waterways, not to mention that Wakulla Springs in this area is a big tourist draw. Our pristine waterways are vital to that as well. The Horn Springs, located in the new park off of Old Plank Road, is extremely unusual and unique. The greenway trails you've established, the Wasissa River that exists, the city park at Southwood that's sitting stagnant, that's apparently going to be constructed one day, all to make this a recreational zone. But now you're trying to turn it into an industrial pathway. Secondly, as a businessman, in considering that you're so quick to say it's a done deal, when the public service records requested respond to the city has very little information in the scope of this project, end quote. I know and would never enter into an agreement without full knowledge of the project. Doesn't seem very responsible oversight, nor to be in the best interest of residents in the city of Tallahassee, nor in the adjacent counties on this property. You don't have enough information to make a decision. NextEra has been less open with their plans to you and to DNP and to the county commissioners. And why the need for the confidentiality agreement? A project this big should be as transparent as glass, and it's done in the shadows. City commissioners. Finally, you should also be concerned with residents in our way are going to be losing homes, as have been mentioned, and at least most of them will be losing some portion of the land. A home is a big investment for everyone. I'm not happy with the fact that home values would be decreased by as much as 38%, and that's documented. And neither should you. We pay sizable property taxes. Thank you for your time and interest.
Thank you, Mr. Axelrod. Mr. Deloney. Mr. Axelrod, you give us your full name and address for the record, please, and you'll have 3 minutes.
He'll be followed by Dexter Sowell.
Donald M. Axelrod, 6457 Fitz Lane, Tallahassee. You've got some photos, 3 sets of photos, which should be handed out. They show Tram Road at the intersection of My Street, Fitz Lane, and they show these power poles on Capitol Circle, southeast. I'm president of SELCNA, Southeast Leon County Neighborhood Association, and I represent the neighbors in Leon County most affected by this NextEra proposal. I'm also a FAMU professor, and as such, I usually speak an hour at a time. I understand you don't want that. You heard why we're here. NextEra wants to put 90-foot tall poles, 40 inches in diameter, 17-foot pounded into the ground, every 400 feet in Tram Road. This photo of the base of a pole on Capitol Circle Southeast says the pole weighs 70,000 pounds, 35 tons. As Jerry, my neighbor, and Mr. Brown said, we've got nothing but limestone underneath us. I'm not sure those poles will stay there long. This project obviously includes my neighborhood. And how did NextEra proceed with this project? Well, I'll call them a stealth army. First, they sent Dewberry Engineering out our road, and they had trucks everywhere surveying. And to give you a feel for this, I stopped one day after they'd been there for weeks, and I said to 5 burly men, "What are you doing?" And I got to tell you, they were sheepish. 5 big men. And why were they sheepish? They knew what they were doing was taking something away from us. I don't think they were proud of it. Then what did NextEra do? They sent middlemen out to my neighbors, offering them nominal sums for their rights of way. And then they mentioned they're going to go to eminent domain if they don't get these rights of way. And then they told us there's nothing we can do to stop them. They're bullies. They're not good neighbors. Effects on my neighbors, they lose their front yards, their trees, they lose property values. My lake drained into a sinkhole 3 years ago just because the neighbor left his hose on for 3 months inadvertently. We're going to put 17-foot deep power poles in every 400 feet along there. There's lakes on both sides of the road at that photo of Fitz Lane and Tram Road. This is America, the year 2019, and a corporation can come to us and say, I'm sorry, we're taking your home. There's nothing you can do about it. NextEra is that arrogant. And they have not explained the need. They have not talked to us about what alternative routes they did consider or why they rejected them. This is not neighborly. In fact, I don't even think they're being honest. You ask Rob McGarr, they're talking 161 kV lines. He would think they're going to go to 230. The former doesn't require a Public Service Commission review. The latter does. Most people think that they're going to come back with a bigger proposal.
Mr. Axelrod, could you summarize your comments? Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, I'm going to give you 2 sentences. We need your help. As our attorney said, we have no leverage. We are looking for someone who's got some leverage with NextEra to bring them to the table, to talk this over, to see if there's an alternative route. Please don't throw us under the bus. We are your neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Axelrod.
Next speaker is Dexter Sowell.
Mr. Sowell.
Dexter? Yep. And then he'll be followed by Carlton Wells.
Thank you. I'm not used to speaking under a 3-minute time slot either, but I'll proceed.
Okay. Give us your name and...
Oh, sorry, Dexter Sowell. I live at 10154 Rose Road, Tallahassee, Florida. So I'm outside the city limits of Tallahassee,
Thank you,
but in Leon County. When I first heard about this, I actually found it hard to believe that a power line of this magnitude was going to be put down Tram Road. So first thing I thought of was, well, what does the Leon County development plan sort of allow for? And so it's a lengthy document, and I did not realize it was combined with Tallahassee. It was an integrated development plan. And in that plan, it says that for rural areas which Tram Road, at least where I live, is designated, on page 29 of that document for future use, land use, it says community services, light infrastructure, and recreational uses may be permitted provided they are compatible with the natural and rural surroundings. Well, I don't think anyone this side of the microphone would argue that 90-foot concrete poles count as light infrastructure, nor are they natural or compatible with that environment. And my gut is, I don't doubt we need resiliency. I don't doubt we need to, try to prevent blackouts. But I think the siting issue, the exact route they've chosen, is what's really at question. If they simply ran the route further to the south, which I'm kind of pointing to this map here, right below the spray fields, there's a natural gas pipeline right away, which actually deviates from Tram right at the Leon-Jefferson line and continues southward, and actually it ends up on Crawfordville Road, is where the power line actually uses the gas pipeline right away all the way up to the electric generating station on the west side of Tallahassee. I think that would be an ideal place to run the pipe. It's the co-location of gas and electrical lines, which has done many times over the southeast U.S., and I know because I've done environmental consulting work on the natural gas pipe right away, and I've seen co-location of those utilities. Another problem I have concern with this is a project this size, I don't see any sort of environmental reviews for it. Part of the siting process, the picking of a route, is pros and cons about staying along, say, a major interstate corridor or another, say, a state highway versus this minor arterial road, which the Tallahassee-Leon County plan says that Tram Road is a minor arterial road. How many other minor arterial roads actually have 90-foot power lines along them? I doubt that. my last concern is the fact that the whole of Tram Road, just about from Capitol Circle to the Jefferson County line, is considered most vulnerable for the aquifer recharge and the health of the aquifer. Of the 4 categories, it's like the most of concern. And this power line is going to be put through it the whole way, which, again, how did that get past any environmental review? I don't know, because if it's been done, it's not available. And my time's up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Soul.
Next speaker is Carlton Wells. After Carlton Wells will be Greta Case.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak here before the City Commission. I'm also speaking against a 160-volt transmission line route that's going along Tram Road. I'm Carlton Wells. I live at 10865 Tram Road, Tallahassee.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. First point is our concerns about the devaluation for the property. You heard where it could go up to 38% devaluation. It provides less attractiveness for others to move or even stay there. There's some of us already talking about moving out. If this line's going to come in, we're going to go out. It has environmental impacts, if you've heard, to ponds, to the fragile sinkhole area, and the watershed to Wakulla Springs. Also, I'm an amateur radio operator. I operate a radio station at my house, and I've acted as a relay station for the American Red Cross during one of the hurricane seasons. My concern is this transmission line will cause electromagnetic interference to my radio operation, which will negatively impact my ability to carry out that public service in the future. We don't want our beautiful country road to change and look like an industrial eyesore. This transmission line belongs on a 4-lane divided highway or freeway, or as you heard, through a wooded area. I already mentioned the gas pipeline. The line, if I recall the picture correctly beyond what's on the screen right now, is on I-10 out east of Tallahassee and is or planned on I-10 west of Tallahassee. So why is it detouring around the south side just to get back up to I-10, making it go through Tram Road, through Wasissa, through Wakena? What's the benefit to the city beyond getting some replacement poles to harden the city's infrastructure with concrete poles? If the city plans to be fossil-free by 2050, that this line might serve a purpose to in the future to supplement things such as solar power, is it at the expense of the Tram Road residents? This line should stay along I-10. Any plans to feed power to Tallahassee should accommodate the I-10 route. Keep Tram Road a beautiful country road and attractive to bicyclists as well. As we heard in the prayer, and I didn't write down the exact quote, but it went something like this, related to common humanity. What affects one affects all. Let's be cognizant of our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wells.
Next speaker is Greta Case, and then Ed Oaksford.
All right, Ms. Case, if you would give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Greta Case, 830 Horsehead Road, Wasissa.
Thank you.
Most of what I'm talking about has already been said in one way or the other, but I live in Wasissa, and I go down Tram Road, and I go down Wakena Highway. And if there any way all of you could come take that drive and look what you'll be doing to Wasissa, you might have a different opinion. It's coming in on I-10. We don't know why it can't stay on I-10 instead of ruining our community. And it seems like you guys should have some pretty serious concerns about the way NextEra has handled themselves and the secrecy and what they've done to people already. So that's pretty much what I have to say.
Ms. Case, just a quick question. Has the Jefferson County Commission taken a position on this? Have they taken it up?
The only thing that I could say about that is that what I've read in the paper is that Parish Barwick has said it's a done deal. There's nothing we can do.
Okay.
So we have, and also I've heard that there will be a commission meeting in Monticello at some point. So this is the first opportunity to make a public comment to people who should have the power to do something about it.
Okay. Thank you very much. And also, if you signed up to speak and what you were going to say has already been said, you can waive in support of the earlier speakers, but you're certainly free to speak if you want. But if what you were going to say has already been said, you can waive in support as well. Our next speaker.
Ed Oaksford. And then Dr. Sean McGlynn.
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, and staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Ed Oaksford, and I live at 2520 Harriman Circle in Tallahassee. I'm here this evening to speak on the power line siting issue, and upon reading the articles published in the Democrat and hearing some of the comment from county commissioners, I find the process that has moved this project forward a little bit troubling. Some points in particular that seem most unreasonable are, first, the clandestine manner in which the NextEra project became revealed to impacted neighborhoods, including offers to buy rights of way from individuals with veiled threats of eminent domain should they not be receptive. And secondly, the shifty way the company has gone about avoiding review by the Public Service Commission. And it is for these reasons that I come before you tonight in sympathy with those residents that are being adversely impacted. From news reports, it sounds like county and city were left out of any early planning efforts as well, and word is that there is little that can be done, as had been said before. This clearly isn't a great start for a project of this magnitude, regardless of its overarching benefits that clearly do make sense. However, by carrying out business this way, NextEra has raised even more attention to this large-scale project. Let me draw the Commissioner's attention to a document entitled The Principles of Environmental Justice. It was created at the National People of Color Environmental Leadership Summit, held October 24th to 27th in Washington, D.C. It had 17 principles that were adopted as part of that particular document. But I will only cite one here tonight that seems most relevant, and that is principle number 7. Environmental justice demands the right to participate as equal partners at every level of decision-making, including needs assessment, planning, implementation, enforcement, and evaluation. It is my hope that the city and the county will engage with NextEra to ascertain what arrangements might be made in concert with input from the homeowners that are being impacted by this project siting to seek alternative locations that will be suitable to all stakeholders affected by this project. In closing, I'd like to read one relevant quote from Lilla Watson, an Aboriginal leader, activist, and educator. She says, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come here because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let's work together." It is in that light that I hope the city can work with the county, the neighborhood, and NextEra to find a more suitable solution to this problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sean McGlynn, and then Timothy Bryant will be the last speaker on this particular item.
Okay.
Sean McGlynn, 568 Beverly Court, Tallahassee, Florida. I'm on the board of directors of the Florida Springs Institute. I'm the science director at Wakulla Springs. I manage many lakes in town, including the lakes on Tram Road. I've been helping the homeowners there with their lakes. And this map leaves their land off as the Wassason. It cuts off right at the spray field. There's 25 miles of this road that goes through Leon County. And Next Extra is supposed to be a very environmentally sensitive company that thinks big thoughts and does things right. But this is the only diversion they're taking off I-10 on their entire route from basically nowhere to nowhere. But we're in the middle. And they're going around us, but they're going through the most sensitive area in the spring shed for Wakulla Springs, the Wassissa, and Osceola. We spent $230 million restoring Wakulla Springs right at that spray field, right where those piles are going to go in the ground. And that's because that was built right on top of the caverns that run to Wakulla Springs. And by doing that, we've basically restored Wakulla Springs. And right now, the legislature is trying to call us the only success story in the environment in Florida. Well, we're not quite successful yet, but we are very close. And Wakulla Springs is 50-foot visibility right now. But the clear water just isn't getting there anymore like it used to. And it's because of these things. These piles, these poles are going to go every 50 feet in the ground. And their land is full of sinkholes. I mean, it is the most vulnerable area according to the lava study, the Leon County Aquifer Vulnerability Assessment Study. This is it. Sinkholes form when you leave your hose running overnight for too long. They're going to put these poles in, then they're going to have to grout them because they're not going to stand up. This lime rock is like Swiss cheese. And this is all the way from in Jefferson County to past the airport and around Lake Munson. That whole area is extremely vulnerable. These are going to go through caverns and crush them. We don't know where they are. And particularly around the spray field, they're concentrated there. That's the heart of Wakulla Springs. And we've already saved it once from one invasion. We don't need any more trouble there. There's no reason why they couldn't go down the I-10 corridor. That's the natural path. We want good power and want protection from storms. But right with the springs we have to protect, we have the best, biggest, deepest springs in the world. And this is the front to it and to the people that live there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGlynn.
Timothy Bryant.
Mr. Bryant? Is Mr. Bryant here, Timothy Bryant, our next speaker?
If not Timothy Bryant, then we don't have any other speakers on this item unless Dr. Jackson.
Dr. Jackson, would you give us your name and address for the record, please? You have 3 minutes.
1341 Jackson Bluff. I own several houses on the southwest side of town, pictured up in here. When I see this picture, I guess I got a couple questions. One, how much money is the city being paid to give up or share our land with Gulf Power? Is there a dollar amount they're paying for access? They're paying zero? Why are we giving up access? Yes, there's a lot of comments been made out here, but first of all, why are we giving up our land and access for $0? Who negotiated that? Question number one. Secondly, I see a project like this. The first thing that comes to my mind, follow the money. We need to follow the money. Third problem. Will this company be able to sell utilities to Florida State University? Does anybody know? We better figure it out because that's where we're headed. FSU's been trying to get out from under the city contract for the 10 years I've been coming up here speaking to you folks. This is a deal. Number 4. Obviously, you need to take it right directly across I-10. The reason you bring it down here and ruin all these people's lives is because that gets the power over here to FSU. That's the answer. Make it cheaper for them. The south side. Whenever you remember years ago I sat here and we talked about the power plant, the biomass plant, stick it on the south side. The wastewater treatment plant, stick it on the south side. Who cares? The airport, stick it on the south side. Who cares? Now we got a power line. Stick it on the damn south side. Who cares? Well, by God, I care. This is wrong. I'm being embarrassed. Our new commissioners, you're doing such a good job. You've got to get those questions answered. We need to understand what's happening to us. If you aren't taking any money, if this business is not taking any money to use your land, I'm a resident for 45 years. I've got a commercial building I want to build on your property for free. Can I do that? If you let these commercial buildings, companies use your land for free, by God, I want to get in that on too. So put me down. Let me know who I need to chat with. City Manager, if I can do that, I certainly want the equal representation because these guys aren't even paying any taxes, but I sure the heck am. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Are there any other speakers, Mr. Treasurer?
No, sir, not on item 1301.
There are no other speakers. Commissioners, are there comments?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if you would like, I could.
You did have.
I could have David provide a few more details than I did, if you would like, before you get into comment.
If you would, go ahead.
David Burns, our Assistant General Manager of Electric System Planning, he's been involved in the conversations, and I'll come back to my original framing. The city's involvement is limited to the request to co-locate on transmission corridors that we operate. Beyond that, we would have no regulatory jurisdiction, of course. And so the question is, to us, what's been asked of us in February is, would we be willing to do that? And so that's what we've been exploring over the last couple of months. I think David could give just a little more details, and he certainly is a good resource for questions that you might have.
Thank you, City Manager. Welcome, Commissioners. David Byrne. I think the introduction provided a lot of information, and you've heard from a number of folks, which also added some additional information, and I raised some questions. One thing that I would like to add is the nature of, and what is mundane to this particular agenda item, is a memorandum of understanding that the electric utility is aiming to develop with Gulf Power. So the purpose of that is to protect the city and the city financially, the city operationally, the city safety-wise. And our effort is, and what we're putting to the Commission tonight for approval, is to go forward with negotiating such an MOU so that we can protect our rights in the event that this transmission line does proceed and is proposed as it's proposed in our community. One of the things that we would be aiming to protect would be any adverse impacts from operations, such as if the construction of the line requires de-energizing of our existing transmission, or that might affect the city's electric operations. We want to address that. We're going to have language to allow for certain cost reimbursements to the city in the event there are any expenses as a result of the project. We want to have an agreement on design standards, safety, and as well as storm hardening. This line is proposed to co-locate on 14 miles of city existing transmission line. That line consists of about 7 miles of what I might call older wood pole construction. And that was shown on the frame here, this type transmission line, which you may see around the community. This is on the southwest corridor. And as well, 7 miles of existing steel pole transmission. Now, the proposal is that the wood pole transmission would be replaced with newer, stronger concrete poles, better to withstand storm winds. The steel poles are already adequate for that, but would likely be relocated slightly on a transmission corridor if the Gulf line was to be co-located at that point. The last thing I want to bring up is that we're looking to study with the companies the possibility of an intertie with this transmission line to Tallahassee's electric system. See, right now the proposal does not incorporate an actual connection to Tallahassee's transmission system electrically. It's on the same property but not connected electrically. We think there might be some advantages, though, to an interconnection electrically, and so we want to be working on studies with the companies to develop those interconnections and determine if there's value for the city there. I think with that I would leave it to questions, if there are any.
Commissioners, are there questions? Commissioner Bryant?
Several questions. I think we've heard over and over again that there was no or limited opportunity for persons who live in this area to have, at least be advised, be knowledgeable of what was going on. Can Can you speak to that? Is that something that Next Era was requested to do, or?
Commissioner, may I try to answer that question? I don't think David's in a good position to answer that. So
Okay.
I think the question is really directed to the project team of Next Era, Florida Power, and Light Gulf Power. There may be a couple representatives in the audience. I don't think it would be appropriate for David to answer that question because he doesn't know. So obviously it's their project.
Okay, is there a representative from Next Era, FLP, Gulf Power here to speak to that issue? Sir, if you could give us your name and position for the record, if you will.
Good evening, Timothy Bryant, Gulf Power Company, External Affairs. And again, here representing Gulf Power and the proposed North Florida Resiliency Connection.
Okay.
And
did you get do you want to repeat your question, Commissioner Bryant?
Sure. Let me frame it again. I think you've heard many comments tonight regarding, first of all, being advised of what was going on. I think several people stated that persons did come to their residence to either make offers or to request support.
Mm-hmm.
So was there any formal type of information sharing with persons who would be impacted by this plan?
So as I think it was previously communicated, NextEra acquired Gulf Power Company in January of this year, and shortly after that acquisition, we started working on this proposed transmission line. And this line is still being engineered. We have not completed any route finalization at this stage, nor pole locations. So the individuals that may have communicated to landowners along the tram road route, they were performing various and sundry survey type activities to verify the engineering and the buildability, if you will, constructability rather, of the proposed line. So that's how those folks came to be impacted or communicated with via our contractors as they were performing a service to do some preliminary site surveying to assess whether or not the proposed route is indeed a buildable route.
So is the I-10 route been considered?
And again, we are looking at several routes. The routes have not been finalized. We expect the routes to be finalized later this year, and we're working to that end literally right now.
Any other questions? Commissioner Williams-Cox.
So to make sure I hear clearly that I-10 is still a viable option.
We are looking at alternate routes through Leon County, through southeast Leon County, across the full range of the proposed route. Okay. We are looking at alternate routes.
Okay, this may not be a question, but this is some questions that I jotted down while I was listening. Are any of the speakers, any of you live within the city limits? Were there any speakers who live in the city limits? In that section where, no, in the section that the city has jurisdiction over? If we can put that map back up. In the yellow sections. That's where the city has jurisdiction. We don't have jurisdiction in the red area. Is that correct, City Manager?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So in the yellow sections, were there any speakers speaking to that? Okay. My concern is that the conversations that we've had tonight are with county residents. Yet at the county commission meeting last night, this didn't even make their agenda. Commissioner Dozier had to bring it up during her comments section for commissioners. So my concern is that there has been no conversation with the county commission regarding this, where we have no jurisdiction. As much as we sympathize and empathize, we cannot go over into the county and tell them what they can and cannot do. Now, the county did receive the information back in February. But again, this did not make their agenda item list for their commission meeting on yesterday. Were any of you in attendance there to voice your concern at that meeting? Okay, I'm seeing heads saying no. So my question is, what can we as the city, what I'm understanding is that we're being asked to use what's already there not clearing anything out, using what's already there to basically use that corridor to cohabitate with this other entity. So I'm not...
Co-locate.
I'm sorry. Co-locate. Yeah, be careful. Be careful. Words matter. But to co-locate where we already are, I guess I'm trying to understand, not that we're helpless. I'm not trying to play that we're helpless, but what I'm saying is that the county should play a bigger role in this instead of us, the city. So I'm encouraging that you all have a conversation with the county. Again, they had a meeting last night. It was not on their agenda. Although they received a letter from the city manager on February 22nd. So that's where I'm kind of concerned that we're here in the city commission, we're getting concern from county residents who we love and empathize with, but have no jurisdiction. But the county commission, who has jurisdiction, didn't take it up until it was in our comments. That's a big concern of mine.
Commissioner Matlow?
I just had a couple questions, I guess along that line. How much communication has the company had with the county commission as far as the route to this date?
We've communicated with several of the county commissioners whose districts the proposed route falls within, and those meetings began as early as February of this year. Also been in contact with their staff.
Okay. And outside of door-to-door, I guess, acquisition offers, has there been any community outreach along the corridor?
There has not been any outreach currently. We were still working through the proposed route and looking at the various alternate routes. So as such, the actual conducting an open house with that limited information, we didn't believe was beneficial to the landowners along the proposed route. However, we are planning an open house here in Leon County within the coming weeks, again, to hear and understand some of the concerns now that engineering is much further down the road. Still not complete, closer to being finalized, but we do believe it's getting closer to the time now where we can actually have an open house and engage landowners to answer their questions and hear their concerns.
Okay. And I guess maybe this is just one step ahead. Like one of the items in the MOU that I kind of had a problem with was we'd be saying that we wouldn't protest or reject the route, but it doesn't seem like the route is finalized, so we don't necessarily know what the route will be before we enter into that memorandum. So that would be my big issue when we start negotiating that language. One, I would like, before we get there, the final language of the MOU to come back to the City Commission to vote on. We've had this with other contracts. I don't want to be held to something where the language might have changed between now and then. So I'd like to get at least a final vote on the final language. That's all I have for the speaker, and I have a few more comments after.
Okay. Commissioner Bryant, did you?
Yeah, just one follow-up, and this is probably to the city manager. The small part of the route that Commissioner Williams-Cox pointed out, is it the county's part and our part really has to come together, and correct me if I'm wrong, before really decisions should be made, since you can't do one. I wouldn't think, and this may be for you to answer, do one without the other. And you understand what I'm asking?
Yes, I understand. And again, this item before you today is literally to allow the county staff to negotiate with Gulf Power Company on the yellow highlighted areas for proposed transmission line in those yellow highlighted areas. As it was previously communicated or assumed, we are working at and looking at different alternate routes in and around those yellow and red highlighted areas. Again, we are working to continue to locate this proposed line in existing rights of way and corridors so that we're minimizing environmental impact and minimizing impacts to landowners and buildings and company owners as well. But again, we are working diligently to finalize the route, but we're not there yet, hence the inability to get in front of landowners earlier because we're still finalizing, looking at alternate routes and the proposed route concurrently.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I want to make sure that you understand the delineation between city and county.
Absolutely.
Because I want to make sure.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
again, we had met with the county, as I mentioned before, in February because the scope of the route that we had identified for the proposed location primarily fell into the county districts, and we were working, as you know, with staff to get to an understanding, if you will, or co-location within the city of Tallahassee right away. So we wanted the staff and our engineers to be able to work. Hence, we haven't come before you as individual commission members. We've not met with you individually yet because we're still letting the process work. We didn't want to get in front of the engineers doing the detail. However, we are at that point now where we need to communicate what we are planning and proposing to do to get your understanding and buy-in. Hence, this memorandum of understanding that's before you now to allow the engineers and staff to work on this proposed transmission project.
I would be interested in knowing who at the county you work with, because I watched this county commission meeting last night, and there appeared to have been lack of knowledge in that meeting. I encourage you to take a look at it as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we were actually kind of called out of saying that we hadn't coordinated well with them, and we worked really hard to coordinate with our partners. So I want to make sure that we understand that that your company had been in contact with someone at the county, not just the city, but with the county, because I don't think we were aware. I wasn't aware that you had some communication with the county, because I know we had shared some information with them.
Yes.
So I would be interested in knowing who, so that we can make sure we're co-locating and cohabitating well together.
Any other questions? Commissioner Bryant?
Yeah, last question. Shouldn't the memorandum of understanding be from both bodies?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, if I could clarify that, I'm glad you gave me that opportunity. That's a draft MOU that's attached to this agenda item that came from Gulf Power as the owner of the transmission line. And what we're asking you to do tonight is to give the city manager authority to negotiate that. Commissioner Matlow clarified that he would like that final version to come back to you as well. I think that's a good recommendation. That is simply a draft, first draft version from Gulf Power. There are details to be worked out, and we're seeking that authorization to work on those as staff.
Okay. Other questions? Commissioners, and Mr. City Manager, I deeply respect your recommendation and the work that you all have put into this, but I'm really concerned about how this process has been handled. You know, one of the things that we have prided ourselves on is transparency in how decisions are being made, public engagement. We're going through the process now of citing a law enforcement academy. And we've got built into that process, first of all, it's very transparent. The community knows what we're doing. We've got built into that process lots of community engagement, opportunities for the community to recommend sites, to be involved once we whittle it down to the proposed sites to give us additional information. We will, once we come down to those final sites, we will contact residents within a certain circumference of the location to get their input, to let them know that that site is being proposed. My point being is that we have prided ourselves on that level of community engagement in projects, not even as significant as this one. And yet I sense, I mean, you've heard, you don't have to have a community meeting. This is the community meeting. You've heard from the residents that are here and the concerns that they have, and they are concerns that I share. It's personal for me because I have a daughter that attends Florida State University School on Tram Road, well, just off of Tram Road. We're contemplating, not contemplating, we're in the process of building a Southeast Park that fronts Tram Road. And so I have serious concerns about the environmental impact, the impact that it will have, as you've heard, on people's homes and their families, their property values. And I can tell you, I'm very familiar with that stretch of Tram Road. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful country road, and I can't imagine concrete utility poles like this along that route. So if there are other possible routes, I would suggest that you pursue those personally, but I could not support this proposed route. I think that there are too many issues that are of concern, its impact on the Wakulla Springs, which we treasure in this area, and we went to extensive lengths as a city to prevent discharge from our wastewater plant we spent millions of dollars to prevent discharge from our wastewater facility into Wakulla Springs because of the damage that was being created. And so those are all very serious concerns, and I don't know how you address those, even if we were to allow this. Those people that live in the county are our neighbors. We are a community. Leon County is a community. So for me, it's not city, county, it's the Leon County community. And so with those concerns, the other issue that I have is the proposal comes under the requirements for review by the Public Service Commission, but that's only for construction. So once it's put in place, you could pretty much do whatever you want to do, and talking about having no jurisdiction, we are totally out of it at that point. And so I just have too many concerns and issues, and if there are alternate routes, I would hope that those are the ones that you pursue and just drop this one from consideration. So that's my position, and I will not vote for the item this evening.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I would want to add that no one wants intrusion where they live. So even if it goes to the I-10 corridor, there would be more people here about the I-10 corridor because we're more densely populated. So my unreadiness is the fact that we don't have a final. We're looking at a proposal, and I'm hearing now that you don't have a final route.
That's correct.
And so I'm a little concerned about voting for something that's something that's in jello. It needs to is shaky.
And again, what's before you tonight is the proposed route through the 14 miles of city-owned right-of-way that we've identified that would allow us to co-locate in existing transmission rights-of-way, which is a practice done in every siting of transmission projects to minimize environmental impacts as well as other impacts to cities and areas. So again, what we're really focused on, or would like to focus on, is a memorandum of understanding of the potential co-located route through the city of Tallahassee's right-of-way. We are still looking at alternate routes, Commissioner. Again, I understand your concerns, as well as the residents along Tram Road. Hence, we are still looking at alternate routes, and hence why we had not met with those landowners in a public forum such as this, because we have not finished the engineering. So again, all those points are taken, and we're communicating that where we are, and this memorandum allows staff to work with Gulf Power Company to come to something that would be beneficial to the city of Tallahassee and minimize impact to not only its city residents, but all of the county as well.
Okay. No other questions? Commissioner Matlow?
I don't have questions for the speaker, but I have comments on the item.
Okay.
So,
Commissioner Matlow?
Yeah, I think the biggest concern for a lot of people is how quickly all of this is happening. In city government, we don't really move that fast. We've been trying to get expanded notifications for development projects and those sorts of things, and I think that's on the agenda today, and that's been about a 5 or 6 month process, and that really gives the time for us to hear from the public and really make the best decisions that we can. So this one has come up rapidly. A lot of the concerns that I guess were being expressed to the county weren't expressed to me until this week. So I took the opportunity this morning to drive out Tram Road. Didn't really know where I was going until I saw a lot of the "Say No to Transmission Power Lines" signs, and I guess that's Fitz Lane, and I realized I was there, and there's a house with a picturesque lake with a dock, and I could imagine if I was in that position and how that would affect my own quality of life. And I'm very sympathetic to that position, and I can understand the distress of somebody and in that position. You know, in the city of Tallahassee, we're very fortunate that we own our own utility. It's something we're very proud of to be able to own, and that puts us in the driver's seat. It puts us in control of how we want to build the infrastructure in our city. And, you know, I think that's something, it's part of the way of life of Tallahasseans is to be in that control of our utility, and that's something I'm committed to. But outside of the city limits, we don't have the same level of control that we may have within the city. But we do need to be good neighbors. We need to be good neighbors with the county. We need to be good partners with our corporations and making sure we're addressing concerns openly and honestly, and making sure there's a time frame in place that we're all able to do that. I think in our area there's 12 local officials, and we're all pretty accessible. I think more accessible than maybe in years past. You're welcome to come visit me any Tuesday during open office hours, 11:30 to 2:30, and hear your concerns or your positions on what's going on. So, and on that vein, at the county commission meeting last night, I just heard a lot of concern about communication and just answers to very basic questions. And I wouldn't feel comfortable if the county was voting on a decision that affected my constituents and I couldn't answer a basic question like, why is the route coming this way, or why is it not going that way? I think those aren't hard questions to answer, but I think when people know the answers, then we're having an honest dialogue. So again, I'd strongly encourage NextEra to reach out to the county so they can figure out the concerns with their constituents and relay that. And if there's alternative routes that seems from what we've heard tonight would be a best possible solution. So I think, if we're going to bring back an MOU or not, you know, I could go either way. I think that gives ample time for the county commission to engage, get their perspective, for the companies to meet with the neighbors individually, address their concerns, and see if there is an amicable resolution before we actually vote on a final MOU. That would be my position tonight.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
Mr. City Manager.
Oh, Mr. City Manager.
If I can add to those comments, because we do need, as staff, we need some direction on this. The question in front of us and what we've been grappling with for the last couple of months is, do we explore co-location? It's not as simple as saying, yes, do it. There are safety standards, there are distance standards. David could do a much better job than I could in talking about inductive energy when one line's out of service, one line's in service. There's a lot to explore. We've put a lot of effort into it. We're more than willing to stand down. That's not an issue. But do we continue that effort, or do we stand down? And I really need your direction on that. Do we continue the exploration as a possibility of co-location? And that's really the question in front of us, and that's the nature of the MOU. The logic of the co-location would be that it would not require additional land for those 14 miles. So I need your direction. If we move forward with an MOU, clearly we would bring it to you based on your direction tonight, or do we just stand down and wait for more information?
Commissioner Williams-Cox and then Commissioner Bryant.
With that having been said, my question would be, I know we're looking at the red and yellow lines, and it looks like the red lines of county would be connected with the city there. But if the city decided to continue to explore the co-location, is it quite possible that the county lines could go further south, go and come in another direction to come into this area? Because it sounds as if we're clear with the city. The concern is where the city and the county connects. So if there is an alternate route that can be determined to avoid causing harm to our neighbors in the county, then would we as a city be okay with using what's already there? To me, it would be maybe environmentally friendly to not unearth more there to co-locate. So is that
Mayor Pro
a
Tem.
possibility that it could come another direction into that cleared area?
Mr. City Manager?
So, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, let me attempt to answer that. Mr. Bryant may wish to answer it further. That is our logic. We are not predetermining that red line on Tram Road. I think, obviously, you see it's not directly straight. It follows paths that it may be logical and available. But I think the co-location piece of it is an important variable for the project team to know whether or not that's considered. Otherwise, you'll see completely different lines that may take land in other areas, and you'll just have different pressure points. I think the question is, can the line be in a different shape? My guess is yes, but that'll be up to the project team.
And again, that is what we are currently reviewing right now. Along with this proposed route, we are looking at alternate routes to the south and other areas for this proposed transmission line. Again, what we are, again, to your point, Commissioner Williams-Cox, we would like to pursue is co-location to minimize the environmental impact through the area that's owned by the city of Tallahassee, because otherwise there could be the potential of additional environmental impact if we did not co-locate and happen to have to go in a different direction that would cause us to perhaps follow a different path completely alongside or in a different area from the city-owned transmission corridor, which would cause us more opportunities to be before you to talk about environmental impacts that we clearly don't want to pursue if we don't have to. Hence the desire to enter into this memorandum of understanding to allow staff to work with our engineering team to look at the potential of co-locating to minimize those environmental impacts to the city of Tallahassee, and while at the same time allowing us to continue to pursue the alternate routes along the Tram Road and other areas outside of the city limits of Tallahassee.
Including I-10.
Looking at alternate routes throughout the proposed, or along the proposed route.
Yeah. I just have to tell you, I would not support a proposal that included that stretch of Tram Road. I think in terms of what the city gains from this, and I told the city manager this yesterday, certainly in terms of hardening our infrastructure, because we've seen what you would consider minor storms have done to our electric infrastructure. And so we welcome that. We welcome that kind of partnership and some of the other potential partnerships that could come out of that. But that stretch of rural road, if it is even considered, I could not support this proposal. And, you know, we heard a county commissioner, and this is secondhand, so if he was misquoted, I certainly apologize, but said this was a done deal. And so people are thinking that, yeah, it's a done deal. I mean, unless somebody tells them otherwise. And so I'm all for the alternate route that eventually connects with our existing infrastructure, but not if it includes the Tram Road section. So that's my position.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Commissioner Bryant, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think it's going to be extremely important that we talk about the county and the city working together. If we're going to do an MOU, why wouldn't we do one jointly?
I think that's the plan, is it?
No, sir, it's not. I don't believe it would be appropriate to have a tri-party agreement. The MOU would be more of an engineering document than anything. In fact, I think when I answered the question earlier, the details to be worked out, we'd have to validate the spacing of the wire, that we'd meet certain safety standards, that we could work on the wire. The MOU, in large part, it's a very industrious type document. It really doesn't speak to the location of the line on Tram Road. It really doesn't get outside the boundaries of what our electric utility would be focused on from a very utility-focused or centric discussion.
So is that for all of Tallahassee? Are we looking at, since we're saying we're not designating, are we looking at that for the entirety of Tallahassee with regards, in this MOU, with regards to the lines? Or is it just this stretch?
It literally would involve only that yellow highlighted stretch of transmission corridor. That would be the extent of it.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Now that we've spent the last hour and a half discussing this, in my mind, it boils down to this, that this MOU is in order for staff to continue to explore the possibility, regardless of where the lines end up, the possibility of co-locating in what is already city-owned infrastructure for co-locating for this purpose. So what you're asking for tonight, Mr. City Manager and staff, is to approve moving forward with the MOU to be negotiated so that you all can continue to explore the possibility of co-locating into what is already there, with the possibility that the red lines can move wherever they move, but you're just exploring the possibility, should this be in an agreement, to co-locate in those yellow areas that are already cleared.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, and also, you noted that the agreement itself has to come back to you anyway, but if you don't enter into this MOU, there will be no exploration at all. So that's what you have to consider tonight. Do you want to at least explore the co-location and give the authority to the city manager to do that, or do you want to shut this down completely and then there will be other alternatives that may be presented outside of the city?
Commissioner Bryant, did you? No?
Yeah, I did have a question, but I got to recalibrate. So I'm going back to my original thought that if we do the MOU, the site changes. It's not this area. Will we need another one, or is it that if you agree, if we say yes, do an MOU, it applies globally? And I'm probably not asking the question in such a way that you...
I think I could probably hypothetically say the project team changes the route, which changes, and it doesn't connect with these yellow lines. As we work, based on whatever is discovered, community engagement, maybe we discover that it's impossible to do the co-location. Ultimately, that would be accounted for in the MOU that we would bring back. Clearly, I would keep you up to date as we had that discussion if there was a material change. But I think it would be ultimately reflected. It may be that this doesn't work at all and the final MOU is never executed. But if there was material change, I think we'd reflect it in the final MOU. The question for us would be co-location. I'm not sure of any other opportunity for co-location. Maybe that would come about. There would be some other transmission line segment that would make sense. I don't have that information tonight, but it would be formalized in the final agreement.
Okay. Is there a motion? Commissioner Matlow?
Well, I tend to agree with you, Mayor Pro Tem, and I think any further path through Tallahassee, I think the paths that are in the city limits are the right paths and the best paths for our city. But as we look at the county and the concerns we've heard, the environmental concerns and those sorts of things, I would entertain an MOU, but with a contingency that we meet with the county and the neighbors and address their concerns. And if that takes, or if that's specifically that it can't go down Tram Road, I'd be open to that as a contingency for what it would take to bring us to the table. If that's agreeable, I'll make a motion to just that.
Okay. You've heard the motion?
Can I get clarification of the motion?
Okay. Can you clarify the motion?
Yeah, we would contingent upon companies' coordination with the county government and the residents along Tram Road to make sure it doesn't impact their quality of life in that specific stretch of Tram Road. If there's a route based around that, at that point we would welcome them coming through City of Tallahassee in the proposed lines.
Okay.
If I may offer, well, we have. I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. There's a motion and a second for discussion. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I would like to offer, I guess, an alternate motion or a friendly amendment, because it's hard to go into something saying contingent upon. I would offer that we enter into the MOU to continue to research the possibility of co-location, but also add, because I don't think we need to have the county tell us whether somebody can co-locate in what is the cities, right. But we do want to work with the county regarding the route. So if we could possibly include in that MOU to continue to do the work that needs to be done to determine what the possibility of connectivity, but also add that we will work with the county to help determine locations of the route that will cause less harm to our county neighbors. That would be my offer to the amendment.
Do you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Can you clarify that one more time? I'm sorry.
That's fair. That's fair. My motion is that we allow the city manager and staff to enter into an MOU to continue to explore the possibility of
relocation.
Co-location, but also add provisions for us to also work with our county neighbors to help determine the best route for the rest of it, so that we won't cause harm to our neighbors.
Okay, yeah, I think I understand. I just don't know where, I guess, the teeth would be if we can't come to an agreement with just the county. So, I mean, I understand, maybe one thing contingent upon another. So,
Perhaps I can clarify.
Sure. Okay.
I mean, what you want to do is, if you want to consider this co-location, move forward with that, but just know, and I think you've expressed tonight, that you're not going to approve it if it doesn't, if the ultimate result is not the harm that you don't want to see happen in the county. I mean, that's really the ultimate hammer, right?
would you be able to have a finalized route before we approved an MOU for the co-location?
And again, the purpose of that MOU is to allow staff to work with our engineering team to review the ability to co-locate. So it's not one happening before the other. The MOU is to give your staff clear guidance that they can work with us in the sunshine, because it's been alleged that we've been working in the dark. So we want staff to be able to work with our team to finalize or to review this proposed route, perhaps finalize it through the city of Tallahassee's existing right-of-way.
Okay.
So that is what we're pursuing tonight, is just the ability for staff to continue to talk with us about the proposed route on city-owned right-of-way.
Right, and let me ask that another way. Is there an alternative proposed route that does not include Tram Road that would connect into the city co-location area?
We are looking at alternate routes along and off of Tram Road, again, along the south side of the county. So we're looking at alternate routes. Again, we just haven't finalized those.
Okay. So this is where I'm at. I'm ready to just pause on the MOU until we see an alternative route that would be agreeable to the county and to the city. And if that comes up, I'm happy to vote and approve for this co-location at that time.
Okay, Commissioner Bryant?
Yes. What is the consequence of waiting to our next meeting to actually approve an MOU? Is there a downside to that?
Or until a final route is maybe determined?
Well, at whatever time period other than the night.
So, Commissioner, there is no consequence to us as the city, or that time is the consequence, but that's not to us, that's to the project. There is effort still to be done for the co-location. Based on your direction now, we would stand down. We would not pursue that any longer. But there is engineering analysis that would have to be done to ensure that it could happen. Again, deep analysis. I can't describe it in the engineering detail that it deserves. So it's just time. I think the consequence is time, and that's to the project, so I can't speak to that beyond that understanding.
And again, it's not necessarily just time. What we have proposed and what we are pursuing is to leverage existing rights-of-way that already have been cleared and are free to potentially co-locate in to minimize our environmental impact of running a brand new line, whether it's a parallel or in a different direction completely outside of existing rights-of-way or off of existing roadways and infrastructure. So we're proposing to build this proposed line in areas that have already been environmentally impacted, so we're not coming back through and causing a bigger environmental impact. Hence, our desire to allow staff to work with us to co-locate within your existing infrastructure. So by delaying or not allowing that potential co-location, what it does do, as I think City Manager Golden mentioned before, is that if you shut it down, we definitely would have to go look at a different route, which could mean greater environmental impacts to the county and to the city, and which was what we were trying to avoid by co-locating, quite honestly, in existing infrastructure and along existing rights-of-way. So that is the challenge that we have before you, is that we were trying to work within existing rights-of-way, within pre-established corridors to minimize that environmental impact. And that's why we wish to, again, allow staff to work with us in this memorandum of understanding to understand all the different engineering, safety, and other requirements that are necessary to allow us to do that.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
My concern is that if we stand down and they're out there doing their own thing without supervision, something else could happen more devastating than if we at least had our staff open to be able to work and talk with them. I mean, no disrespect. I'm just saying.
That's understood.
If we're not involved while you're working on your alternate routes and what have you, and we can't negotiate or talk with them, then we're operating in the blind. Because they're not going to go away.
Right.
They already told you that they're looking for alternate routes. They're not going away. That's my concern. But I've said what I need to say.
So
Commissioner Bryant?
Yes. So let me ask you, are you asking the county to give you an MOU?
We're not, because the county doesn't own existing transmission rights-of-way. The yellow lines are existing transmission rights-of-way that would allow us to co-locate. The areas in red are, again, existing roadways that we thought may, again, sense or to build the proposed transmission line. So no, we have not entered into an MOU with the county, because all those are individual landowners and not a city entity or an entity such as the City of Tallahassee that owns transmission rights-of-way.
Okay, so then what you're saying is that for the county, the only thing that they're agreeing to or would agree to or would consider, let me change that, is to put up the poles. There is no co-location. Is that what you're saying? So there is no need for an MOU. Is that what?
Within unincorporated Leon County, there is no county-owned transmission right-of-way. The existing right-of-way that is owned are owned by existing cooperative electric companies, Talcon, I think it is, Tri-County. So again, those are not county entities. Hence, we don't have an MOU or seeking an MOU with county staff, because county does not have an electric utility for us to work with. The City of Tallahassee owns about that 14 miles of transmission right-of-way that would allow us to co-locate within to minimize our environmental impacts if we were to build out this proposed transmission line.
Oh, well, no. We're not gonna engage in that. This is commission discussion. We've given the public an opportunity to speak and have input. This is commission discussion. Commissioner Matlow.
Yeah, and I certainly appreciate, your intention with the environmental impact in Tallahassee. I would have you guys done studies through the unincorporated area in Leon County to gauge the environmental impact in those areas?
Yeah, yes, we are. We have, and we are ongoing. We're actually working to file our permits within the next few weeks with environmental permits that we have that are required for this particular project. So we're working to put those permits forward to the various agencies within a few weeks.
Okay.
I would like to see this move forward if I could be assured that that tram road route would not be considered. Outside of that, I just can't support it, especially when I hear that there are not an alternative, but alternatives to choose from. And so unless I had, if something came back to me that included that stretch of tram road, I just couldn't support it. But if you all look at those other routes, and if they are better suited to what we're trying to accomplish, then I want to try to get there, but not if it includes that stretch of tram road.
Understood. And again, what we have put before you tonight, or what staff has put before you tonight, is the opportunity for staff to engage with us to look at co-locating in that portion that is owned by the city of Tallahassee, which you do have oversight. Aside from, again, the tram road piece, that stretch of road, again, we're really looking at allowing staff to be able to work with us to minimize that environmental impact, as I mentioned before, to allow us to co-locate. And again, it's not one and the same of co-locating within the city and tram. Those are not mutually tied, as we've all come to discuss tonight, because we are looking at alternate routes across the full route through Leon County. However, from our initial studies and of this proposed route, co-locating within existing transmission corridor is the minimal environmental impact that we would like to proceed with if we can get opportunity for staff to work with our engineering team to do their due diligence and understand, again, how to build it out safely.
But Mr. Bryant, what you continue to, from what I keep hearing you say, is City Commission only be concerned about the city of, and we're not. I'm concerned about our neighbors on Tram Road. I'm concerned about the students that attend Florida State University School, where my daughter is enrolled. I'm concerned about the residents that will be using that Southeast Park once it's, so it's not one or the other for me. And so I will say that I will not support any plan that includes that portion of Tram Road in this co-location process.
Mayor Pro Tem,
and
can we call for the vote?
If I can just make one point of clarity before you vote. Again, want to reiterate, I didn't mean to slight the residents along Tram Road, but again, the MOU allows staff to work with us to look at all the alternative routes, including routes alternate to Tram Road. Without the MOU, we can't look at those alternate routes beyond that because we lose the ability to work with staff to be able to build it out in an efficient manner. So again, hence the reason for the MOU.
Okay. Well, I just want to be clear that I will not support an MOU that includes Tram Road as the route to the relocation. So, but at this point, I'm prepared to give staff the direction to move forward if that's what the majority of the commission does, but understand that's where I will be.
Understood. But again, the MOU allows us to look at alternate routes. The route you see on the screen is our preferred route. Right. And quite honestly, again, even without the MOU, that is still our preferred route. So what it does, unfortunately, is puts us in a position of having to look at routes adjacent to your existing infrastructure, which would result in a greater environmental impact. So, and it does not allow the city to gain the benefits of the added resiliency that we promoted in the proposal. So again, it's really the issue before you is that we're looking at this as the preferred route, but there are alternates that we're pursuing, but the MOU allows us to further evaluate this route.
And I have to insist that there be as much public input as possible during this process. That input, like what we've heard, be considered earnestly and considered in this plan as we move forward.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can I make one final comment before we vote?
Okay.
Because I really want to make sure that the only thing we're voting on is a MOU. I'm not voting to approve
a route.
Is that right? I'm asking the city manager now.
Mr. City Manager, that's my
impression. To negotiate an MOU, there's still details to be worked out. You're not sanctioning the attached MOU.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
all right.
If I may.
Mr. Treasurer Clerk.
I think it's important for you to make sure that you, as a commission, clarify your vote. I believe you had a motion and a second on Commissioner Matlow's.
Right.
Commissioner Williams-Cox followed with a friendly amendment or alternate motion, but I don't believe there was a second to that. So
Because it wasn't accepted.
Okay.
and that's fine. I was just making sure so that to Commissioner Bryant's question, though, of what you're voting on, it'll be whatever y'all say you're voting on.
Please, please, and it's been 30 minutes since that time, so could you please restate your motion?
So right now, we are voting on Commissioner Matlow's motion since he did not accept Commissioner Williams-Cox's friendly amendment. So, Commissioner Matlow, would you restate your motion?
I think there was some confusion on the contingency, and that's where it got us out. So this is what I'll say. I don't think we should engage in any work outside developing the MOU language. And between now and the time that the MOU comes back, I'd like to see an alternative route that doesn't include that, or else I'm not going to vote in support of it. So we'll just be spinning our wheels. But I'll go ahead and make the motion to draft an MOU to be brought back to this body to vote on, but that's going to be a contingency.
Okay, are you withdrawing? Because there's
Yes,
already
I'll withdraw.
a motion.
Yes.
Okay, he's withdrawing the motion. Is there, okay, so the motion is withdrawn, the original motion, so we'll entertain your motion.
Substitute motion.
No, there is no motion on the floor. He withdrew
okay.
that original motion. So,
Okay.
Commissioner Matlow.
So I'll move for staff to work on the legal language of an MOU to be brought back before this board. I'd exclude the language that we won't object to the route. And I just want to, and I'll just state for the record, my vote will be contingent on us alternating the route to accept that MOU when it comes back.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Without any other questions or discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0, with the mayor being out of the chamber due to a perceived conflict of interest.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Mayor, you missed all the fun.
I'm refreshed. All right, commissioners, here's what we have before us, and I'll give you the choice. We got 15 minutes till the public hearing. If you would like to take a dinner break, we could do that right now, but we have to be back by law at 6 o'clock for the announced public hearing. Or we can move forward with another agenda item at 6 o'clock, take care of the public hearings, which could go quite quickly, and then take a dinner break and come back and finish the rest of general business.
Let's do that.
So saith. Is that good?
Yeah.
Mr. City Manager, item number 13.02, please.
Thank you, sir. This item involves a proposed revision to the city's gift policy, consideration of additional financial reporting requirements, and it also highlights your change to policy 108.06 earlier this year, which expanded the opportunity for citizens to be heard. I think we just saw an example of that. It also highlights the expansion of our organizational values to include a statement regarding ethics, and highlights that on talgov.com on the homepage, we have already updated it to include a quick link for our residents and businesses to see vendors and lobbyists that are registered with the city. Christian Doolin's got a very quick overview of this item.
Mr. Doolin.
Hi, Commissioner and Mayor. Through your direction and priority, the city continues to consider ways to elevate ethics and transparency into a core of the way we do business. This item presents an action among detailed efforts to strengthen ethical governance. The recommended action is to accept revisions to our policy and procedures manual. It will establish a no-gift policy that's going to provide clarity to our entire organization on the way we do business and the way we interact. This also occurs among a suite of activities that you're well aware of. First, your expansion of opportunities for the public to speak at meetings. Second, the treasurer clerk elevating a process that would elevate financial disclosure activities. Third, the transparency portal that the city manager just mentioned. Anyone can look up our vendors and lobbyists, and that's prominent on TalGov. And finally, the attorney's office is looking forward to evaluating the recommendations received by the Ethics Board late last week. So these are the actions that are making a strong statement on our commitment to ethics and transparency that will build a government that the people can have a lot of trust in. Looking forward to your direction.
Thank you. Do we have any public speakers, Mr. Treasurer Clerk?
We do have two speakers on this item, Mr. Mayor. The first is Ernie Payne, and the second is Peter Butzine.
Mr. Payne, thanks for joining us. And thank you for your service on the Ethics Board.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. As a member of the Tallahassee Independent Ethics Board, I come to speak in strong support of the proposed revision to the Policy and Procedures Manual. I congratulate Mr. Doolin and his committee. I think they're doing a great job, including the no gift total ban on gifts. That's something that I think I've heard at least most of you speak of, either on the campaign trail or direct conversations with us, with me and others. I think it's a great idea. You all received the submittal of recommended revisions to the city ordinance as it relates to the ethics code last week. It includes a similar kind of gift ban, along with many other important recommendations, including proposed penalties for violations of the ethics code, increasing those penalties. My thought is that these two documents can be seen as complementary and reinforcing each other, so that Tallahassee city employees can see that ethical behavior is forefront in their minds at all times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Peter Butzine.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Peter Butzine, 1628 Woodgate Way, and I appear before you as a volunteer for Common Cause and for the Citizens for Ethics Reform, which includes the Tallahassee League of Women Voters, Common Cause, the Florida Tea Party Network, and Integrity Florida. I was joined by Ben Wilcox, who was sitting beside me, but he had to go to another meeting. We are the coalition that placed a proposed ethics and campaign finance charter amendment on the ballot in 2014, and we worked for its approval by 67% of Tallahassee's voters. We strongly support the gift ban that will be considered as part of 13.2. With our input, the Independent Ethics Board recently submitted its annual report and recommendations for strengthening Tallahassee's notoriously weak ethics ordinance. Those recommendations include a total gift ban. It defines who is covered by that gift ban, and it provides a detailed definition of gifts. We have been reminded of the importance of this issue only a few hours ago when our former mayor settled with the Florida Commission on Ethics in a case by admitting that he accepted an unreported lobbyist gift in excess of $100. We have also learned that setting the threshold for value of a so-called acceptable gift fails to prevent improper influence of public officials. When our former city manager, Rick Fernandez, was caught accepting football tickets and access to a lobbyist skybox, a multi-page report authored by the deputy city manager at the time engaged in what we considered logical gymnastics to conclude that the tickets were worth less than the $100 threshold, which is required for reporting. Well, simple common sense made it clear that the football tickets and access to an exclusive box and all the accompanying food and beverages were clearly valued at more than $100. And my purpose is not so much to fault the report as to emphasize that a total gift ban would not only have discouraged the original infraction, but it also would have prevented the accompanying waste of personnel time that was required for its preparation. Public officials and employees and those who conduct or wish to conduct business with the city should be prevented from soliciting or receiving gifts, period. And we look forward to working with this board as we support the work of the Ethics Board in its presentation of a sweeping ethics reform amendment or ordinance that will come before you, hopefully before your summer break. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public speakers?
Not on 13.02.
Excellent. We'll open it up for discussion. I got a question. The recommendations for both option number 1 and option number 2 approve the language of section 706.06 personal policy and procedures for no gift policies for city employees. It's the entire city organization.
That's correct.
By definition, does that include the employees of the ethics office and the ethics board members as well? The idea is we should have one sweeping plan that we all adhere to, whether you're an elected member of the city commission or an elected member of the, or an appointed member of the ethics board. If you are an employee of the city of Tallahassee or an employee of the ethics board, we should all play by the same rule. Peter, I'm sorry, Peter, I did not ask you. There's basically 3 sets of recommendations that have come forth. We have the city's recommendations, which we're dealing with now, your organization's recommendations, and then we have the formal recommendations. And I applaud the ethics board for the hard work that y'all have done, and we look forward to dealing with it as well. In your recommendations, the organizations that you're working with, are you suggesting that we apply the same rules to the members of the ethics board and the ethics office that we and the appointeds would have to abide by? For instance, 0 gifts, 0 gifts. Financial disclosure, financial disclosure. One standard across the board.
The principle is there. I would say I'm much more familiar with the ethics board's recommendations, which are very clear, and they define covered employees, and covered employees includes public officials, it includes procurement officers. There's a list.
Correct.
There are also, maybe we should have Julie Meadows-Keefe as the executive director address this. It also has a very enforceable definition of gift.
Correct.
And so I am not as familiar with the particular proposal that's before you in 13.2. Okay. My hope would be that in the very least that you would adopt the recommendations of the Ethics Commission, or the Ethics Board, which have been very thoroughly vetted, including by our organization and by the people who are doing very good work on that board. But perhaps you might want to ask that of Julie Meadows-Keefe.
I appreciate it, Peter. My point is this, and what I would be interested in moving forward is that if we are going to adopt the 0 gift policy, and an employee of the City of Tallahassee Ethics Board is technically not a city employee.
Right.
I think all members of the Ethics Board appointed, all employees of the Ethics Office, along with what's being proposed, us and the city employees of the City of Tallahassee should all be under the same standard, both for financial reporting and for those that apply, but most importantly, on the gift ban. I cannot make the motion as the chair, and I'm just putting my thoughts out there. I'll enter comments, questions.
Just one moment.
Sure.
One thing we do want to think about is that if you want to have everybody under the same, we likely need to wait until we actually have the complete review of the proposals that have been submitted by the board, because we would have to bring them in under most likely and most properly by ordinance, because as opposed to a policy, since they are independent.
Sure. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Sure. Yes, sir.
I had that same thought in mind, because if we adopt something here now and it's contrary or not consistent with what the Ethics Board recommends, then if we then decide that we're going to go with the Ethics Board recommendation, then we've got to come back and rescind what we, or amend out of the ordinance what we would adopt here tonight. So I would agree that maybe we should, before we address this issue, that we address it in the context of the Ethics Board's recommendation.
Okay, so what I'm understanding, and I'm fine with this if this is the intent, instead of taking action tonight on the 2 staff recommendations that are before us, we wait till we get the full legal analysis and policy analysis from staff on what the Ethics Board has suggested to us, and then take it as one complete package at a future meeting.
And then at that point, I think we could, if it did not include the broader coverage that you're suggesting,
right,
that we include it at that point.
Okay. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
My concern with that is that it has taken, a year for the Ethics Board to come forward with your recommendations. I would, however long it's taken, I wouldn't want to rush our review of that to put it in some type of box timeline before looking at implementing the policy that has already been recommended. Now, the city manager and I know we had this conversation about what that could possibly mean. And if we're going to take something wholesale, we can either, that means then that the zero ban policy, the zero gift ban policy won't take effect until we've had an opportunity to review this in its entirety. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, we're still under the old rule unless we adopt the policy that's before us tonight.
Correct.
So if we're interested in shutting this thing down tonight, then I think we need to adopt something, put something in place until we've had an opportunity to really review, get a legal opinion of what the Ethics Board has recommended.
Right. And I agree with you, Commissioner Williams-Cox, and I agree with you too, Mayor Pro Tem. The point is that I think it would be very easy. The difference is when we're dealing with city employees and elected, it's a policy change. When we're dealing with the Ethics Board, it's an ordinance change.
Right.
Correct?
That's correct.
So, but I feel very comfortable making the policy change as amended, including the language, Tallahassee Ethics Board, knowing full well that we're going to have to bring another agenda item before this body for consideration in the form of an ordinance change. But I think it's important, especially today, that we send a very clear message on where this board stands in moving forward in a new day with new light on ethics in Tallahassee. So, Commissioner Williams-Cox, I agree with you. I would feel comfortable moving forward with both option number 1 and option number 2 with the amended language, if anything, just to, even if it's not Madam Attorney, obviously not in effect because we cannot create ordinance tonight, per se, but at least we're sending the message of our intent to be addressed at a future meeting. My thoughts. Commissioner Matlow.
Yeah, sorry. I had a similar concern with, I think, the language and the item actually wouldn't cover the city commission. It would
That's
just
correct.
specifically be our city
It's
employees.
only employees.
Right, okay.
The commission would have to do it well, you have to make the policy applicable to you.
Correct.
Okay.
Or you have to actually do a separate policy.
Okay, and I totally agree. I wouldn't want our employees to be subject to rules that we weren't putting on ourselves. I haven't had the chance to read the specific language that was recommended as far as definitions of gifts. So parsing through both of those, I think we would need time to see exactly what it is for what actually comes back. I'd like to recommend, I think Dr. Jackson said he had 9 suggestions also independently, and I have a few suggestions along that we campaigned on. We talked a lot about just the relationships between campaign contributors, and he mentioned the 2014 vote to limit campaign contributions to $250, and that's hard to do with Supreme Court decisions, but something that Coral Gables does is they require lobbyists and vendors that contribute to political campaigns to actually disclose that information to the city. So as we develop our online portal of vendors and lobbyists, I think it would be nice to include something that required our vendors to disclose what campaigns and political committees that they've contributed to and what their principals have contributed to. So I'd like to start a broader conversation, and maybe it starts with reviewing the recommendations from the Ethics Board and then having a workshop specifically devoted to those issues and any recommendations anybody else may want to bring forward.
Good points. Commissioner Bryant.
Let me say that what we do for the city will require, for city employees, will require a little bit more definition than what I see written here. Because when I read some of this, it's pretty wide open, and then we're leaving it to the interpretation of every city employee. And to be very specific, I'm just going to read a part of number 5, if you would allow. It says that so long as, if a meal or incidental item is provided as part of a conference or event at which a city employee is present, the employee is not prohibited from accepting the meal or incidental item, so long as the payment for attending such an event was made by the city and attendance is in furtherance of the employee's public duties, or such meals and incidental items are also available to the public without payment of any fee. So I don't know how the employee would know if it had been made available to the public. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but we need to make sure that we are very clear on what we're asking city employees to do and not leave it to interpretation. So whether or not we adopt this tonight and then come back and do, because Commissioner Matlow, when he starts to talk about campaign funds, that's not really something that the city employees need to be concerned about. So we may need two different actual policies that are inclusive and applicable to us in our various positions. So I'm certainly in favor of the highest bar we can get for ethical behavior all around.
Sounds great. My interpretation, by the way, for whatever it's worth on that particular provision, is that if you are attending a conference and you paid a registration to attend that conference and there is a meal included in that conference, that is covered by your registration. Therefore, it's not considered a gift. You're participating in the conference. But yeah, we can tighten the language up, sure. Commissioner Williams-Cox, did you have a follow-up?
No.
Commissioner Matlow, follow-up? Commissioner Richardson, follow-up? Currently have no motion on the table. Let me just say for the record again, I am strongly in favor of moving forward with option number 1 with a zero-gift policy for electeds and all employees of the city of Tallahassee, all appointed members of the Tallahassee Ethics Board, and all employees of the Tallahassee Ethics Board. I am more than willing to move forward tonight and then take into consideration all other we're going to have to do it anyway at another meeting, take into consideration all other suggestions that come up that are vetted, or what is the will of the board? What would y'all care to do? I need a motion on the table.
I'd move option 1 for purposes of discussion, Mr. Mayor.
Option number 1 has been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Any discussion? Sure, Commissioner Matlow.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not voting on the specific language, and it will be brought back as an item at a future meeting, parsing through the alternative languages that have.
Right. I think that just in light of all the things that we have before us, if this commission would be willing, I think it will be preferable to do all of this at one time, to perhaps have a workshop to thoroughly discuss these issues and make sure everybody is on the same page with the definitions and the consequences of some of these things for employees.
Okay. Shall we defer to the city attorney?
Yeah, and I'll affirm that.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Motion's been properly refolded. There's a motion to defer action to a further date. However, I am very proud of this commission and the clear message that I think we've sent about future action and some other great ideas that could be coming before us.
And if it's okay, I'd like to self-impose 0 gifts publicly for me or my family. Don't offer us anything, we're not taking it.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Matlow properly moves deferral of action from this evening, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Seeing no further action, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously 5-0. Great outcome. Thanks for working with us on that. Folks, it is 6:08, so I apologize if you are here for the public hearing. We are running just a little bit late, but colleagues, why don't we jump over to item number 15.01, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor.
Excuse me, Madam Attorney.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start with the public hearings. Item number 15.01 is the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 19-0-06, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending Section 6 of the Charter of the City of Tallahassee to annex within the corporate area of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, upon adoption of said ordinance, property being situated in Leon County, Florida, in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of Section 171.044 Florida statutes, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Mr. Clerk, do we have any public speakers?
I do not have a speaker form for anyone on this public hearing item.
Is there anyone here that would care to speak on this issue?
Let me see if this form that's coming my way is on this item.
Move staff recommendation, Mr.
Been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously. 15.02, please.
Thank you. Item number 15.02 is the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 19-0-07, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending the Tallahassee Land Development Code pertaining to land development approvals, expanding public notice, removing provisions superseded by state law, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. On this item, there are two requests for approval. One, if the ordinance passes after public hearing, then also there is the approval of resolution number 19-R-09 on the fees.
We do have speakers on this item, Mayor.
Excellent, Mr. Cook. Go ahead and call the first speaker.
First is Kathy McGuire, and then Mike Brazine.
Kathy, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please, and if you could try to keep it to 3 minutes, that'd be great.
Okay. Kathy McGuire, 1101 Pine Street. I bet I can keep it to 1 minute. I just want to express my support for expanding public notice, and thank you for your decision to do this and for the transparency that you're bringing to all of us in general. Thank you.
Thank you.
The second speaker is Mike Brazine.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's it going,
Name
everybody?
and address for the record, please.
I will. I'm Mike Brazine. I live at 1401 North Randolph Circle in welcoming Benton Hills. And tonight I'm speaking as the co-lead for the Alliance of Tallahassee Neighborhoods. We want to thank you for initiating these citizen notification improvements. This is a big step forward for enabling the voice of citizens to be heard regarding developments in and around their neighborhoods. As staff has pointed out in their materials, the Alliance of Tallahassee Neighborhoods strongly supports these improvements. They constitute Group 1 of enhanced citizen involvement and notification improvements we have discussed with growth management. We are discussing another group of improvements with staff from growth management, planning, and real estate. These two Group 2 improvements are summarized in your agenda materials. There is one improvement missing from that list, however, the city definition of surplus property. This definition was apparently changed after the Myers Park parcel conundrum, and the ATN is recommending that the definition revert back to the original to better preserve public property, particularly in neighborhoods. We look forward to discussing the Group 2 improvements with staff and keeping you informed on our progress in this endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next public speaker, please.
That is the last speaker on item 1502.
Thank you. Colleagues, any comments? Any questions?
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
Properly been moved by Commissioner Matlow, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. Madam Attorney, do we need a motion to pass the resolution now?
Yes, please.
Move that we adopt resolution 19R09.
Properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Bryant. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. 15.03, please.
Thank you. Item number 15.03 is the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 19-Z-02AA, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending Southwood Plan Unit development on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, adopted and established by the City Commission, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
We do have speakers here. The first is Josh Casper.
All right, Joe.
Nothing
Thank you,
there.
Mr. Casper, for waiving your time.
The only other speaker we have on this item is Gary Jordan.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Name and address for the record, please. 3 minutes.
Gary Jordan, 4568 Grove Park Drive,
all know
Tallahassee.
you.
This ain't going to take but a second. I am probably the most affected homeowner next to the development, and we just want to urge you to vote positively for the recommendation. They've done a great job.
Thank you.
Very happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move staff recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. 15.04, please.
Item number 15.04 is the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 19-Z-05, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designating and including additional territory as an in-office residential OR2 on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, adopted and established by the City Commission, providing for conflicts and severability, and providing an effective date.
No speakers.
No speakers. Any comment? Properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem. Staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. 15.05, please.
Item number 15.05 is the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 19-Z-11, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designating and including additional territory as an in-university transition UT on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, adopted and established by the City Commission, providing for conflict and severability and providing an effective date.
No speakers.
No speakers on this item.
Move staff recommendation.
It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. Do we have anything else to come before us on the public hearing?
That is the end of the public hearings.
Okay, folks, we're going to break for dinner in a second, but, however, we only have 3 speakers on the unagenda business items. I am inclined to go ahead and let them speak so that they don't have to wait another 30 minutes for us to have dinner and come back, finish general business, and go from there. So why don't we go ahead and move into speakers for unagenda items. Mr. Cook?
Yes, sir. The first unagended speaker is Alexander Jordan, and then we'll hear from Stanley Sims.
Mr. Jordan, great to see you. Your name and address for the record, please. And if you could try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, that'd be great.
Good afternoon, everyone. Alexander Jordan, 4614 Whitetail Pass, Tallahassee, Florida. Who we are P&A Strategies. We're a business entity that looks to and values sustainability, innovation, creativity, and as well collaborating with our communities, our business owners, and as well people within our community. That's key and critical to why I'm standing here in the front of you. What we want and what we're requesting and need the City of Tallahassee support is a proclamation that we're looking to support Children's Day. Children's Day initiatives that we're considering is called Capital City Children's Day. That includes the creation of a children's mural along with at the Cascade Park with conjunction with FSU Art Department. We've been working with FSU Art Department, Leon County School Board, and others within the community to develop a solid Children's Day initiative. Currently, right now, currently on June 9th, it's recognized nationally. However, it's not recognized within the state or any city within the state of Florida. And with that, we want to celebrate this great day by developing a mural at Cascade Park. Currently, we're working with Marlins Coden, who will help us develop this mural. Within your pamphlet, you will see a sketch of the mural that is proposed. Why would be different? We would like to merge in resources that we currently have and the ability to anchor our national endorsement, encouraging other business entities and as well other outlets as ELC, Early Learning Coalition, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Leon County School Boards, as I mentioned before, and the children within our community will have the opportunity to engage. And allowing them to engage, we would then no longer will allow other kids within our community to not go without those things that many other communities around our national forefront consider as like Miami, Atlanta, who other cities who have many things to offer. And as well with currently, I know Kids Incorporated does a Kids Fest event at Cascade Park. But it's a totally different atmosphere that Children's Day would highlight. It would also bring a lot of our community together from Leon County School Board, talking about how we can incorporate STEM's initiative, education initiatives, to allow our children to have that day to recognize what's important for us as Children's Day. But one of the most key part is developing the mural that's part of your pamphlet there. The day will be June 9th. That's a Sunday from 9 to 5 p.m. That will allow individuals who have participated in the State Children's Week and as well the Children's Day that is held at the Capitol every year. However, this day will allow family and friends and others to come together and join on a day that parents are not at work, as this past year on National Children's Day. So with that, I would like for the commission to look and consider having a proclamation for June 9th Day, recognizing Children's Day on June 9th at Cascade Park.
Done. If you're looking for a proclamation, we can do it. Absolutely.
And with that, we would like for support from the City of Tallahassee as well, the Leon County School Board, to support that day as well.
That you need to talk to city manager with. Seriously, will you sit down and maybe city manager, if you need to bring something back to us, you can do it at a future date?
Yes, sir.
Being time sensitive, that June 9th is around the corner?
Yes, sir.
Sounds great, though, Mr. Jordan. Appreciate it. Any other questions for Mr. Jordan?
And I put something in your pamphlet, so I was kind of want to be quick with the 3 minutes because I know only 2 others want to get to dinner, as I would like to as well. And again, thank you, again, for allowing me to come in front of you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
The next speaker is Stanley Sims, and then Kate McFall.
Mr. Sims, great to see you.
How you doing?
Your name and address, please.
Stanley Sims, 1320 Avondale Way. I'm here before you this afternoon. I have been in previous discussions with the city manager in reference to a fair wage entrepreneurship co-op that we're trying to really vet. I met with you. We've got a very positive response from our stakeholders in the community. And when I say stakeholders, Mayor, I'm talking in reference to our stakeholders who are sustainable in the community, such as TMH, Capital Regional, our universities, our large employers. We met, Dr. Tom Taylor and I, we met with Florida Blue today. And the concept that we're really trying to bring a advisory council or a coalition together, that this will be a community-driven where we actually give fair wage job opportunities to a targeted set of individuals who have otherwise been disenfranchised or left out. So it's geared toward these particular people. And then not only do we start them out with a fair wage of $11 an hour, but we also introduce them the concepts of entrepreneurship and give them that support with them. And we've got our partners that are excited about working with this here. This is not something that will drive competition, but this is something that does 3 things, Mayor. It will give an honest assessment of our workforce. It also says it feeds to our contractors. As you know, that we've got a lot of business and construction that's going on. They may say we will also, the co-op will help identify this workforce and pretty much steer people and say, hey, you love the paint and you can also lay a sidewalk, so we want to show you, we'll be able to give them that data. And Commissioner Bryant, you're always talking about a plan. What I love about this is we really want to kick this off May 1st, bringing all of our stakeholders together so that we can put an advisory and plan together, come back to you in 6 months and say, hey, we've vetted this idea. Here are what we have targeted. This is our implementation plan. And here is also what it takes to get us there. And so I'm very excited about it, but we do ask that the city will give us the seed money to get this together, because one thing that I am asking for this is when I'm speaking with TMH, and I've already spoke with the county, and I have a meeting next week that's scheduled with Mr. Convince Long.
You're at 3 minutes.
And
wrap up.
What I'm trying to accomplish, Mayor, is in marketing this, I made the mistake of making this about Stanley. And so sitting in that hospital a couple of days, I had a little talk. And so I'm refocused, and I want to thank every one of you for the kindness that you have shown me. And so what we're doing now, Mayor, is this will actually be a citywide coalition that's geared toward bringing fair wage job immediate to these core people. And what we do is the county will be sitting there. I've spoken with Leon County Schools. Commissioner Richardson, we're looking at dollars from the Lively Volcano. They are a member of this advisory council that we have there. TCC, Ms. Kimberly Moore. We want to look at various co-ops and see which one fit with us. We have a conference call scheduled tomorrow with the consultant that we literally want to bring in and direct our group how to vet, how to set up everything so that we are a separate entity. This is something that has been done in Gainesville. We want to go there and look and see how they are doing. And so I'm so sorry, but I really would, because we do have this, if I'm asking of anything, if you could give staff direction or authority. Our city manager has looked at our proposal, and so he's aware of what we're trying to get done.
Reverend Sims, I tell you what we're going to do, okay? Your May 1st meeting, send over the time and the place, and either somebody from city management or somebody from my office will be at that first meeting with your other partners to sit down, see where we go from there. Obviously, we don't do you justice by only giving you 3 minutes, and you weren't able to tell us the entire picture in 3 minutes.
Right.
So why don't we do that? In about a week and a half, you got your first organizational meeting with your partners. Congratulations, you've got great partners. I will personally have somebody from my staff or city manager go and attend the first meeting, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you so much.
Sounds great. Thank you. Our last speaker?
Kate McFall, and as she approaches, I will tell you that the numbers have grown. I had overlooked one, and a fifth has handed me a form.
Okay. Ms. McFall, good to see you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. I'm Kate McFall at 1206 Walton Drive, Tallahassee, and I'm a board member for the Animal Shelter Foundation and also a volunteer at the animal shelter. I know that you guys have all been there and seen all the amazing animals for adoption, all the time. The needs assessment report by Animal Arts, you may have just received it. It was just finished, perhaps yesterday or the day before. And hopefully you'll have a chance to read it. But we appreciate your staff's attention and leadership in getting this assessment done. John Powell and Ashley Edwards are fantastic, and we know they're fantastic, and this was a big feat just to get this done, a great first step. The feedback from the assessment includes that our current shelter is undersized, which we knew, and that today's practices have significantly progressed and changed since the mid-90s when it was built. Again, not surprising, but good to know. So a new shelter is needed, it's overdue, and it's really hopefully on the horizon. A new shelter will change the entire experience for customers, providing a low-stress environment where people can interact and get to know the animal they're adopting in a more natural setting. We know it's better for the animals, improves their quality of life, decreases their length of stay, decreases illness, and certainly euthanasia. And it's a better environment for the staff. So from the veterinary staff who works in a very cramped area, to the whole animal control department sharing one office. And by the way, the animal control department and the veterinary team are just two of the departments that are doing amazing work on animal crimes. Really, really fantastic work that everyone is applauding and supporting their great work on animal crimes, working together with law enforcement. A new shelter will also provide space for community people to gather and to bring new faces into the shelter and meet the animals that are waiting for homes. There's so many benefits. It's really endless, and for the staff, for the humans, and for the animals. So it's time when we're ready, and the Animal Shelter Foundation, shelter volunteers, and the humane community in general, we stand ready to assist and work with you. We know it's not going to be overnight, but we are ready to assist and partner and work together to put this on the horizon for a new shelter facility. We're ready.
Thank you.
And one other quick thing that I would be remiss if I didn't say. ASF, the Animal Shelter Foundation, this is our 18th annual Tails and Trails event. Nice. Hopefully it's on your calendars. Y'all would like to come. It's a great event. It's a 1 mile, a 5K, a 10K, and a half marathon. It brings about 1,000 people to our shelter to see the animals and to get to know it and to have a great race. It's a really fun event. So hopefully you'll help spread the word about Tails and Trails on May 4th, Saturday. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker?
Next speaker is Erwin Jackson.
Dr. Jackson, good to see you.
Will be followed by Henry Choice, and that's the last speaker I have.
Irwin Jackson, 1341 Jackson Bluff. I've got, I just again want to thank the commission for taking the steps to implement this no-gift policy. It's going to be very important. In the last 10 years, I've picked up 9 things, 9 items. I think we've exposed about most of the corruption in City Hall. I think it puts people on notice that people are watching. I've got 9 other issues. Some of these are policies. Some of these would be an ordinance. Some of these would be the public may have to get involved. And I'm going to write these up and give it to you so you don't have to take notes, but to give you some idea. One is that nepotism. We have way too many city employees whose brother and son and uncle and that family members are working for the city. Now, at a minimum, we ought to have, if you're a department head or above, you shouldn't be hiring fellow family members. Okay, I don't care if it's directly under you or not. Nepotism. There's a conflict of interest with some nonprofit groups. We have some county commissioners that are hired to go out and raise money for a nonprofit organization. Now, if the mayor comes up and asks me, hey, you could do me a real big favor, I work for the Red Cross, and I'd sure love a $5,000 donation, I'm not going to pay it. I'd probably lecture him. But a lot of people would feel intimidated, especially if it was a contractor that was working for the city. So there's all sorts of things. We need to stop that before it goes worse. And we obviously have county commissioners that are doing that right now. So I think we can show them that that's the wrong way of doing it. Retirement. We ought to have a city employee and a city commissioner. The city commissioner should not have a better retirement program than any city employee. They should all be treated the same. Campaign managers. We haven't, you'll have to help me come up with a solution. But you got campaign managers. They help people run a campaign, and then those campaign managers get city contracts. Well, that's wrong. You can be a campaign manager and help me run my campaign, or you can, put in an application. You just can't do both. Voting. We've had this situation when someone leaves a city commissioner, the city commission should not be voting for the replacements. All right, either operate with 4 if it's with a year or less. Otherwise, let the public vote. We want to be able to vote for city commissioners. So that would be a change that would be needed. We've watched for years Scott Maddox get up here. Anytime his clients would get up here to speak, Scott gets up and says he's got to go to the bathroom. Then he comes back and he's missed the vote. We need to address that people are going to be forced to vote on these issues that come before the city commission. 7, we need a spatial direct line where city employees can call a member of the sheriff's department when they observe something that they believe is unethical or illegal. It does them no good. City employees, after the last 8, 9, 10 years, them calling me, it's unbelievable I can't return and deal with all the people that call me. We need someone
Jackson,
here.
if you can help us out with the time, that'd be great.
Okay, that's 7. 9, we need to limit city commissioners to 8 years, and if you run for city mayor, 8 years. 16 years is enough. And the last one is I strongly encourage you to accept all the ethics proposals that's coming your way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Appreciate it. Our next speaker?
Next speaker and our last speaker is Henry Choice.
Mr. Choice, good to see you, sir. Thanks for joining us. Your name and address, please, for the record.
Henry Choice, 141 Fleming Road, Bainbridge, Georgia. I'd like to bring to the commission and your attention about grants. I'm more familiar with charity also. As of now, I'm employed as a volunteer at Annie's Kitchen. And I was trying to lend my financial resources to your office, but it's hard for me to get any of my financial resources to you. So I was wondering, is there any kind of way that we can set up a meeting that we can view my financial, that can be turned into grants or loans or any kind of way?
Sure, absolutely. We're about to recess for dinner, and I'll meet you in the back of the room.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Any other public speakers?
No, sir. We have one on one of the agenda items that you'll take up later.
Sounds good. Commissioners, great job. 6:35, we're going to recess for dinner until 7 o'clock. We need to be back in chambers at 7 o'clock because we've got, we still have some general business, okay? Commission meeting back into order. We are back on general business. Item number 13.03, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an update on our progress regarding our mission, vision, and values effort that feeds into our strategic planning. At your last month meeting, we gave you an update and you gave us some feedback on where we were with the process, and we wanted to circle back with you and give you the final drafts of our mission, vision, and value statement, as well as talk about the next steps in our strategic plan. Christian Doolin, as you know, has led the charge on this, and he's going to provide a very brief update for you.
Thank you, and Mayor and Commissioners, I'll be as brief as possible. So these statements reflect why our organization exists, where we're going, and our fundamental beliefs. So the mission is meant to reflect what we do and our aim to be the best in the nation, not a leader, the leader. It's our city's nationally recognized for Best in America Parks, Tree City USA, bicycle friendliness earlier tonight, livability, age friendliness, #1 public utility in America, commercial service airport of the year. I could go on and on and on, but we see this as square and our mission to be the best in the country at what we do. Where we're looking forward to is to be able to embrace the future, leveraging our unique and differentiating ability, our characteristics. So that's our vibrant neighborhoods, our creativity, our strong community, our innovation and education to create economic opportunity, and then our unique natural resources and character. These value statements represent our fundamental belief, and these have not changed since they've been in front of you last time. But again, they elevate things that our staff holds important and a fundamental belief to what we do: ethics, integrity, citizen service, collaboration, equity, and diversity. These statements are the product of a tireless effort. We're moving across them very quick, but we've had a working group of neighbors and staff that my team is eminently thankful for. And following the finalization of these, we will be looking forward to bringing you some goals that are in line with your strategic priorities and objectives to start to drive our broader 5-year strategic planning effort that you can approve in September.
Excellent. Thank you. Any public speakers on this item, Mr. Cook?
There are none.
Any questions or comments?
I am excited about what this team has done. I expressed that in our briefing, and it is, I think it's been a tremendous lift to arrive at this point. And I want to thank Commissioner Bryant for also working with the team to help us bring this home, bring it on in, so that we can all wrap our arms around it. So congratulations and thank you.
I could not agree more. Very well said. Commissioner Bryant.
Yeah, I really want to commend the team. I had opportunity to meet with them, and they were extremely receptive to comments and suggestions. So, and they have come back after putting their heads together and with the mission, vision, and values that I think we're ready to move on.
Excellent. No further comment. The staff recommendation properly moved by Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox, seconded by Commissioner Bryant. Seeing no further comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed passes unanimously. 13.04.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item requests your approval to initiate the sale of a 2.21 acre parcel that the city owns. It's located on Enon Church Road, directly behind the Duke Energy electric substation. As part of our normal process, all city departments have confirmed that there's no city needs for the property, and we are recommending the sale through an RFP process. Final approval of the sale will require your authorization, and we're seeking your permission to move forward that tonight. There's an image on your screen you can see. That is Bluntstown Highway in the yellow, the Duke Energy substation, and directly behind it is the parcel that we acquired through an acquisition from Talcott Electric, related to some other energy needs.
Excellent. Any public speakers, Mr. Cook?
No, sir.
All right. Any comments from my colleagues?
Move staff recommendation.
Seeing none, Mayor Pro Tem has properly moved staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed passes unanimously. 13.05.
Thank you. And you'll recall at your last meeting, after a good discussion, considerable actually public input on the matter, you authorized staff to participate in the auction for the purchase of the Northwood Center property, which is approximately 35 acres of land and 500,000 square feet of commercial space. We did participate in that, and I think it's well known that the city was the highest bidder at $6.8 million, plus a 5% auction transaction fee. We expect the closing to occur quickly. Right now, it's scheduled no later than May 20th. And so we wanted to share, for one, we wanted to confirm for you the action in the public. We wanted to show you the map of the parcel involved. You can see it on your screen. It is not a contiguous property. It also involves properties across the street. I believe that would be to the east of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. It includes a number of out parcels, not just the main building that we normally think of. There is a land lease involved with the Hooters restaurant. There is a triple net lease with the El Jalisco restaurant, which means that upon closing, the city would own that building, but the tenant would be responsible for the capital maintenance and repair. There's a month-to-month lease with the Milano Shopping Center. That lease has expired, and it has now moved to a month-to-month. There's a bank building that is not occupied and not leased on the corner. The property that's to the east of the main parcel includes Enterprise Leasing. That's Enterprise Rental Car. There's a land lease involved there, and also a building known as the Northwood Building. I believe it was the old veterinarian office next to the post office. So we wanted to give you that overlay of the property that was involved and just highlight the next steps that we anticipate, and then we'll flesh these out more as we move forward. Prior to closing, we will be able to do a preliminary walkthrough. We expect that to happen in a couple of weeks so we can get some idea of the condition beyond what we've gotten in our due diligence of the property. Again, closing on or before May 20th. Post-closing is when we would anticipate engaging with the tenants. Right now, they are not tenants of the city of Tallahassee. We are not the landlord, and we want to respect that process. NAI Talcor is the property manager. That is the appropriate contact right now for the tenants, but post-closing, we would engage. Post-closing, we would do a more thorough evaluation of the buildings for their soundness. We know most of them are unoccupied, but there are some tenants in there, even in the main building. And we would move quickly to address the immediate needs of being the property owner. We would anticipate using a property manager for those functions. That does take a certain amount of specialty. And then we would look at the more long-term needs. There are some leases, I mentioned the out parcels, those lease terms are different, some lasting into the early part of the next decade. Moreover, concurrent to this, we wish to begin immediately the exploration of long-term planning options, and I think that was much discussed at your last meeting about what the future could hold for that property. I've not asked you in this agenda item to vote on that, but I do anticipate asking you to hire professionals in this regard. We would want to bring on the right resources to help us plan and best position the property for future use. So we wanted to make sure we brought the item back to you and just share where we are, what's occurred, and certainly get any thoughts that you might have.
Thank you. Any speakers on this item, Mr. Cook?
We do have one speaker, Patricia Oxford. Maybe I should say we had one speaker.
Ms. Oxford? Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Mr. Pro Tem.
I understand that there are some structural issues with the Hooters restaurant, and I would like to volunteer to lead the delegation.
Remember, your wife is watching.
Without objection, Commissioner Richardson. Any other by the way, this item does not require any auction. It's just for information. So we're just open for comment.
Thank you for the enlightenment. I didn't realize that it extended across the street. Even so, is the animal hospital still there? It was a Northwood Animal Hospital?
They have moved, but so that building is vacant right now.
Okay, and the Enterprise rental is still there?
Yes, ma'am, it's active.
Okay.
May not be worth much, but the Northwood Animal Hospital, when it was operating as Northwood Animal Hospital, the veterinarian there was Dr. Jerry Deloney, who was one of our citizen speakers earlier on the Next Era item. Huh. So it came full circle.
Right. Mm-hmm. How about that? All right, seeing no further comment, no action is required. Let's move on to item number 13.06, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll quickly introduce Christina Paredes, our OEV Director. We've done this update in the past where we give you a quarterly update in terms of our economic vitality. And I'd like Christina just to give us a brief overview of what's happening today.
Thank you very much. And the commissioners, thank you for allowing me the time today to go over some economic indicators with you today. As you recall, our competitiveness annual report was put out in 2019 or 18. This scorecard helps us understand how our community is performing amongst our peers. There's 11 communities that we look at. These are within our economic development strategic plan, as well as state capitals and comparable populations and student populations. You can see here that this scorecard looks at 5 core metrics and illuminates successes and challenges to improve our economic competitiveness. And I would like to highlight a few of these for you today, but information of all 5 of these is within your packet, as well as the detailed supporting metrics. First of all, and for business vitality, we're ranked #1 amongst our peer communities. This focuses on diversity of employment, wage growth within the private sector job growth, and in a minute here, I'll give you some updated employment stats that show a 5-year trend of continuing private sector employment growth. We will continue to monitor this index. Right now we are performing #1 amongst our peer communities, but through our business outreach and engagements, both through our MWSBE division and our business vitality division, we'll continue to monitor all these activities. And again, all this is all rooted within our long-term strategic plan and programs that we work with under your direction and with our ecosystem partners as well. In the Innovative Capacity Index, we're ranked #6. This index demonstrates that it's incumbent upon our office and our partners to implement strategies for improvement in this area. Some early initiatives that have begun in these 2 sectors. One is, I'm going to highlight one of our partners, the Leon County Research Development Authority, has started grant writing for science-based grants to help improve our score in this area. And then, of course, the ongoing work of the Magnetic Task Force too will help drive, hopefully, a change within this as we continue to climb more into the #1 spot in the innovation capacity. The first quarter economic indicator report was published this February. You can see here that it highlights Tallahassee passengers and some of those key quarterly economic indicators to see how our community is performing on a whole. Overall, these indicators represent a very healthy economy and growing economy here. And that's most recently highlighted in our employment conditions for the month of March. For the month of March, we had the highest year-over-year private sector job growth at 4.7% for any March to March since 2007. So, for example, we had 5,700 more jobs in March of 2019 than we did in March of 2018. And you can see that our unemployment rate continues to go down and the growth within those major industries highlighted here on this graph as well. Here's another line chart for you to continue to show that moving average of private sector job growth over the last 5 years. We've added 15,000 jobs to our community in the private sector within the last 5 years. That's just over a 14% job growth in that category. You can see in this graph here, the private sector's in teal and the government is in the yellow in that piece. Again, the unemployment rate continues to go down, and with a high labor force participation rate, we're seeing our wages climbing too. Again, this is all a very positive indicator and something that you'd hope to see in a tight labor market such as one that we're experiencing right now. You can expect your next quarterly indicator report to be published this June and brought to you at your next IA meeting. Again, just wanted to highlight for you that this information that presented you today shows a growing, diverse, and vibrant economy, and we'll continue to work with our businesses and our partners to help these trends continue to go in the right direction. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have today.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Thank you, Christina, for this report. I had the opportunity to watch the County Commission meeting last night and saw this presentation, and I developed a couple of questions. I understand that we can go back to the slide that has the cities that we're our peer cities, and you said that they were a part of the strategic plan. I'm not sure how they were selected, But when I look at these cities, and I don't know when this was initially done, there are some things that kind of stand out to me, being familiar with most of these. Tallahassee has some things that these other folks do not have. We have multiple colleges here. We have a very diverse community, which many of these do not. So I'm questioning, are we looking at that when we're looking at these peer cities? Are we looking at other cities more aligned with us that relate closer to our demographics here in Tallahassee? Because I just know that in Lincoln, is that Nebraska?
Yes.
Okay. I just got to believe that in Lincoln, Nebraska, does not look like Tallahassee. So I'm just wondering, how did we choose these peer communities, and are we looking at some that are more aligned with us?
Absolutely, Commissioner. For the 11 communities that we selected, they were based on whether or not they were a state capital with similar size population, similar college demographics, the college proportion to their demographics, mostly within the southeast region. I know that Pensacola, Gainesville, and Athens, Georgia, and Madison and Little Rock were all highlighted in our economic development strategic plan. And we'd be happy to take another look at what other communities out there could be very comparable to ourselves as well.
Yeah, I would be very interested in that because, again, even with the cities that we were named with in the top 10 cities, looking at us in comparison to them with this same lens, because I'm just thinking that there's something, and I like data, there's something obscure about this. I just can't put my finger on it, but there's just something obscure about this as I don't see, to me, I'm not seeing places that look like Tallahassee, if you know what I'm saying. They're a place that has like a Florida State and a Florida A&M in the same place. So those are the kind of things that I'm kind of trying to bring to the attention. A two-university town, a very diverse community, in embracing minority communities and what we're doing here in Tallahassee. Also, I see the report on the private sector jobs, but what's going on with the public sector jobs?
This graph right here for you, Commissioner, shows you the total government employment jobs here. This goes all the way up to about 2018. You can see in the gold the kind of where the state reduced their job count, some university impacts that includes the schools as well as local government in that count.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Bryant.
Christina, thank you for the report. On page 3 of 4, and what was provided to us, there's a discussion about the Urban Vitality Job Creation Pilot Program that's centered on jobs, I think, on the South Side in economically depressed areas. Is there a report on that? A commitment to supporting local business, attracting high-skilled jobs, and promoting job training programs?
Yes, Commissioner. We will be bringing back to you either at your June IA meeting some recommendations to tweak that program. Okay. It was a pilot program that we started 2 years ago. We haven't seen any success with businesses taking advantage of it. We've been marketing it very heavily. So as a direct result of it being a private or a pilot program, we'll be making some tweaks to that so we can hopefully encourage businesses to utilize that to help create jobs in that area.
Okay, very good. Is the diversity program, what did you all do? It was
our minority
disparity
women
study.
Yes.
That's what I'm looking for. Is it completed?
We will be brought to you at your next meeting in June. Okay. We're looking forward to sharing that with you.
All right, thank you.
See no other further questions. Staff recommendation's been made by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. No further comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously. 13.06 is done. Last item for the evening. Thank you, Mr. Paredes. Certainly appreciate it. 13.07, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. This is our last policy item, as you indicated. We want to give you an update on our process for the selection of the future TPD headquarters. At your direction, we put out a call to the public to get their ideas of where the locations could be. That actually worked out very, very well. The public submitted their ideas through a variety of ways, not limited to, but including talgov.com. We had 178 responses, which we were very pleased with, that ultimately represented 68 unique sites. And Wayne's going to just share a little bit about that. The most often recommended site was the Northwood Center, followed by the Tallahassee Center and the existing police station, and a number of other locations got numerous submittals as well. So we did have some duplicative recommendations from the public, and we wanted to make sure you knew what they were, what the geography and the location of where the recommended sites are, and then talk a little bit about the next steps in this process, because we do have some ways to go, and we want to make sure you know and the public is clear on what we'll do next. So I'll turn it over to Wayne.
All right, I'll try to be very brief, Commissioners, and just touch on a little bit further than what the city manager identified. As the city manager indicated, there were 178 total submissions. 68 of those were only sites. The rest were recommendations or ideas for us to consider. During the last meeting, there's some discussion between whether we keep a 2-mile radius from the center point of downtown or we extend it out 2.5. What you see on this map here is representation of the inside line being the 2 miles. We actually had 23 sites within that 2-mile radius. If you expand it out another half mile to include 2.5 miles, that's another 8 sites. If you kind of dive down into it just a little bit further and say, well, which one of these meet the 9-acre minimum size requirements, 12 of those inside the 2 miles radius meets that requirement, and 7 within the 2.5 mile, the additional 7. So looking forward to the next steps, how we evaluate those sites that were submitted. We'll take every one of those sites as we presented at the last meeting. These are the criteria that will be the first swipe as to analyze and rank the sites according to, do they meet the criteria that was established when the needs and assessment study was completed. So this was, you notice the weighted from top to the bottom. Those are the more important sites or the more important components that these sites have to address on the front side. After the evaluation of all the sites, we'll bring back, or actually before you even bring it back, we'll have narrowed down, and hopefully once we apply the criteria to these sites, you'll see 5 to 10 that really step out, and we'll have to kind of gauge based on how close they fit together. Then we'll notice property owners within 1,500 feet, property owners and tenants within 1,500 feet of those sites. We'll give them 30 days to get that notice, have their review, ask questions of staff. Then we'll bring it back to the commission for your review and narrowing it down to 3 sites. After we get those 3 sites narrowed down from you, then we really do a very methodical deep dive. We'll go into those neighborhoods for those 3 sites or those areas. We'll notice again the folks within 1,500 feet, not only the property owners but the tenants. And then we'll have community meetings, take their public input on what they feel like the site should be. As we indicated previously, the location does matter on what you provide for this facility. If you're in certain parts of the community where a community facility would be warranted or needed, I think we'll get that feedback from the citizens. So we'll take that feedback. We'll have an architect on board by that time. They'll then start rendering some sites and trying to fit our needs and what the community has suggested on that site. Once they take that rendition back again to the neighborhood, then they will bring back or do a even further deep dive analysis and say, okay, well, how much does it cost? What are the components? What are the necessary steps to evaluate further? We'll bring that back to you all after it's been properly noticed, and then you will select from those 3 sites your top choice, and then we'll begin the negotiations. From that point forward in your agenda materials, we have a schedule. It'll take about 6 to 12 months, probably more likely 12 months to do the design of the site, and then construction anywhere between 18 and 24 months. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Wayne, thank you for your report. For the sake of transparency, not just with us, but with the public, will we be provided, the commission, be provided with the ranking of all sites before it gets narrowed down to just 3 presented to us?
Yes, ma'am. I think the entire public will have that notification because the process dictates that we release what the top 5 to 10 sites are for us to have that 30-day notice period to those top 5 to 10 sites. So
Okay.
you will have that list within 30 days of any public meetings.
Okay, along with the rankings.
That is correct.
Okay.
It'll be numerically identified, and you'll be able to follow each site and say, this site scored 30 points, this site scored 100 points.
Okay.
You'll be able to see that.
And I was talking with you earlier because I see on this agenda item, you and Cynthia were reporting, and you explained to me that you're making a report because of land use, but the public safety campus is still under a deputy city manager's purview, so she'll be reporting in the future as we go down this.
That is
path.
absolutely correct. My forte is land use planning and studies. This is my subject area that I really stand out in. But we don't do anything without each other's companionship and working. In fact, when we're meeting after this meeting and get your final direction, we'll start setting the process together. Assistant City Manager, Deputy City Manager Barbara and I, and we'll be moving forward the process together.
Okay, I just wanted that for a point of clarification.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to accept staff recommendation? Probably move.
Question.
Sure. Commissioner Matlow.
I guess more a recommendation. When we talk about 5 to 10 sites, if we could err on the side of 10 sites, I just don't want to be put in a situation where somebody's really upset that, they got really close and they were 6 or 7, and we can't really explain why it became 5 instead of 10.
Yes, sir. And I think, Commissioner, the most appropriate response would be the top 10 sites would be those that we advertise, but you would have the list from the entire site. So even if there's something that you feel is important from outside of those top 10, you have that ability to pull those out as well.
Okay. And a second question, I guess more for the city manager. I talked about this a little while ago, but I just want to make sure as we get into this process and we start picking a site, we're clear about kind of what our budget is for the entire project and letting people know what to expect, because as we start to design it and what it includes, it looks like we could be building different types of things depending on where we go. I think we need to be clear about how much we're willing to spend up front before we get too far into it. And with that, I'll make a motion to accept.
Been properly moved to accept staff recommendation from Commissioner Matlow, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. That is the end of general business. Do we have anything else to come before the commission? We are now on the sharing of commission information and sharing of ideas. I have nothing. We'll start at Commissioner Bryant and just work our way back.
I have nothing.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I thought I had something, but I can't remember. Go on.
All right, Commissioner
That
Matlow.
means she has nothing.
It has been an absolute pleasure.
All right, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
I have nothing.
Excellent. Have a wonderful evening. We stand adjourned.
All right, thank you.